Zelda Invades Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276, Strength Doubled. Wrist Injury? Link was shocked. He immediately knew that it was the Washan princess who was injured. If the dark figure attacked the Sky Princess, it would only attack the vital parts. Only when dealing with the Sky Princess, whose sword skills were not inferior to Link's, would he attack the wrist. In order to reduce the threat, Zelda thought of something and hurriedly threw her bird out of the package. Zelda said to Link, "This bird has been modified by Tony and has a strong detection ability." The bird flew forward quickly and then suddenly made a buzzing sound, as if releasing some invisible rays to explore everywhere. Link forgot what the ray released by the bird was called, but it had strong penetrating power and could help Zelda detect things. This kind of ray has a terrible destructive effect on the human body, but for the Hylians, this harm is minimal, especially Link. Link also stretched out his hand to release an energy field to block the brown bear. Zelda got the feedback from the bird and hurriedly stopped the ray detection. Said to Link, "It seems that there is something strange covering the top of my head." Link sneezed and nodded. He used the dragon scale sword again to drill towards the top and quickly broke the soil above his head. This made Link even more curious. Who was the dark figure who claimed to be Ganon's subordinate? What was he doing here? What was he guarding? In a blink of an eye, Link broke the soil 30 meters away. Then the feeling of the dragon scale sword breaking the soil became strange again. Then a lot of ice chips and frozen monster corpses fell down. These monster corpses, yes, they were the vicious vegetation that Link had destroyed before. Link broke through the ice suddenly. He heard the sound of a whirring battle. At a glance, Link saw Princess Washan fighting with a group of white figures. The white figure showed a long sword that seemed to be made of white mist and fought with Princess Washan. Princess Washan seemed to have suffered some losses and her right wrist was bleeding. So she held the sword with her left hand, which she was not good at. The white figure was like a thick fog, moving back and forth, sometimes suddenly dispersing and regrouping, so it was extremely difficult to deal with. Link hurriedly followed with a sword. When Princess Washan heard the noise, she didn't even need to look back, and a smile appeared on her lips. She knew that Link was coming. The white fog figure also saw Link attacking and hurriedly retreated. But Princess Washan followed with a sword. The white fog figure suddenly dispersed and disappeared. Princess Washan said anxiously, "Be careful, Link." Link waved his hand and rushed over. He grabbed Princess Washan's right hand to check and saw that the blood flowing out of Princess Washan was almost black. It contained a lot of Ganon's curse power, so that Princess Washan's face was unbearable. Link helped Princess Washan clear the remnants of Ganon's curse power. Princess Washan had to look back and forth because Link didn't care about the enemy at all and acted carelessly, so she had to prevent the disappearing white fog figure from attacking at any time. Link forced all the tainted blood out of the Washan princess. He then took out a bandage from his coat and covered the wound. The white mist figure laughed unpleasantly and said, "What a conceited little fellow." Then, it suddenly condensed into a shape from behind Link and stabbed him. Link couldn't dodge at all at this distance. But Link smiled. Boom. Several golden chains bound the white mist figure, and time stopped on the white mist figure's body. Link smiled at the Washan princess. She moved aside and stabbed the white mist figure with a sword. She poured her energy into it and spurted it out. Zelda's energy was more effective against Ganon's power than Link's. Link snapped his fingers and the time-stopping spell ended. The white mist's body returned to normal and was hit by Zelda's full-strength sword. It immediately twisted and exploded into a pool of dirty Ganon pollution. The figure in the white mist screamed, "Link, waiting for you." Link also added a sword, completely destroying it. He added in his heart, "Let me see how many clones you have." The Washan princess breathed a sigh of relief, hugged Link, closed her eyes and whispered, "You came just in time." Link smiled, and Zelda said the same thing. At this time, Fang, who had transformed into the size of an adult python, pulled Zelda and the brown bear up. The brown bear looked at the long big red Fang in horror. In its simple and primitive beast heart, a feeling it had never had before arose spontaneously or for higher level creatures. Zelda ran over with a cheer. "Zelda, you're okay too." The Washang princess smiled lightly. "Zelda, it's great to see you." Fang and Link looked at each other. The feeling of two Zeldas communicating was too weird. Boom. 3 certificates of bravery fell on the ground. Link took them into himself, and his mood calmed down a little. Although this kind of travel still involved unexpected dangerous events, it still brought Link a good harvest. Link has become at least twice as strong as before he came to Siberia. Time waits for no one. Zelda continued to let the bird detect the surrounding situation. Affected by the rays, Zelda and the brown bear felt a little uncomfortable, and the brown bear scratched the ground with its claws angrily. Time passed for a long time, but nothing was detected. Zelda rubbed her head and said, "No, there seems to be nothing abnormal around." Link was a little anxious. The Washang princess closed her eyes and tried to awaken the connection between her and the Washang princess. But it never worked. At this time, "I feel some strange fluctuations," Link said, but the two princesses and the brown bear shook their heads. They didn't feel anything. Link suddenly transformed into a shadow wolf and used this more sensitive body to feel. That's right. It's the fluctuation of the reality gem. Link's body has been entangled with the reality gem for a while, and his body still retains the influence brought by the reality gem. So he could sense the faint fluctuations from the reality gem, while others could not. Link carefully sensed the position. This kind of fluctuation. Is Midona fighting someone with the reality gem? He must hurry over. Link scanned the area and finally found the location where the fluctuations were most obvious. After walking 50 meters, Link turned back into a human, and then holding the dragon scale sword, he continued to dig upwards. At this moment, Midona was in a passage above, with blood coming out of the corners of her mouth, and her face did not look good. In front of her was a twisted monster, covered in Ganon pollution, with 2 pairs of blood-red eyes, and behind it were slender wings dripping with Ganon pollution. Midona panted, "Link, come here quickly. This Zelda is different from the others." Chapter 277 Zelda vs Zelda. Midona fought with the demonic Sky Princess twice. The demonic Sky Princess was so strong that Midona could only barely fight her with the help of the power of the reality gem. And in one of the demonic princess attacks, her body was infected by the curse power like a virus. Midona had to withstand the attack of the curse power in her body and the crazy attack from the demonic Sky Princess. The demonic Sky Princess could attack Midona recklessly, but Midona couldn't scare the dead hand, so she could only go back and forth, using as few damaging skills as possible, and barely fighting to the extent of self-protection. "Again, if you are so aggressive again, I will be angry." The Sky Princess rushed over, with a lot of dark curse power lingering around her body, which made Midona's scalp numb. Midona muttered, "Please, Link, please show up soon. I'm not afraid of Zelda. I'm just worried that, if I hurt her, you'll get angry. So troublesome. Link, it's such a good time to be a hero and save the beauty. Why don't you show up quickly? Be careful that other heroes come to save me and win me, the beauty, and you'll have no chance at all." Midona kept on talking. The Sky Princess's attacks were more and more fierce. Midona was hit again, and her body was slammed against the wall. Another mouthful of blood spurted out. Midona licked her lips and tried to move her body. "So, you're going to get angry?" Midona glared at the Sky Princess a little annoyed. The other particles beside her condensed into cones and stabbed away, creating a little bit of dark red water ripples in the air. When they came into contact with the air, they also made the kind of anxious background sound similar to the one produced when the TV screen was distorted. The demonized Sky Princess wanted to dodge, but her body seemed to be stuck in cement and couldn't move. The power of the reality gem restricted the surrounding space, making it difficult for the demonic Sky Princess to move. Then the demonic Sky Princess did not dodge. Then she clasped her hands together and released dark energy, like a refracted black rainbow that stabbed at the attacking other particles. The dark energy made the surrounding brightness even dimmer, and it made the surrounding space unimaginably full of strange howling sounds. The two strange energies collided at the same time. The bodies of the two girls paused at the same time, tit for tat. At this moment, the situation was evenly matched, and no one could retreat half a step, otherwise the evenly matched situation would be broken, and one side would change the situation with a slight advantage and crush the past. The two girls now seemed to have stabbed each other in the chest, and no one dared to draw the knife easily. Midona took 2 steps back, her face a little pale. She was injured, while the Sky Princess was still healthy. So in this simple entanglement, Midona would lose the wind as the time continued. Midona looked at the Sky Princess and kept communicating with her through words, but the demonized Sky Princess only let out a painful wail, but her subordinates were still merciless. As long as Midona was a little relaxed, they would definitely press on her desperately and would not stop until Midona was killed. The Sky Princess cried out in pain. No. Midona sighed. I should be the one saying this. At this time, Midona found that the reality gem she controlled suddenly began to be out of control, like a boiling oil pan. Midona gritted her teeth. Reality gem, can you be obedient? It's also my fault that I'm too lazy. I should have contacted you more and made you obedient. The Sky Princess's wail suddenly disappeared. Midona's heart sank. Could it be that the power of Ganon's curse completely controlled it? At this time, the reality gem finally stopped submitting to Midona's control and began to explode. The surroundings were shrouded in a layer of dark red light. Midona was in a trance. It's over. Am I going to die in this dark cave? Of course not. At this time, Midona suddenly heard a familiar voice behind her. A white hand reached out and held her wrist. Then a gentle energy came through, helping her control the violent energy of the reality gem. With the combined efforts of the two, the power of the reality gem was finally successfully restrained. Just like the video of the explosion played in reverse, the power of the reality gem was gathered back into Midona's palm and turned into a ball of moving magnetic metal. The demonic Sky Princess saw that the strong impact disappeared and wanted to rush up to attack the exhausted Midona and Link. But a group of figures suddenly arrived beside her, and a clear and ethereal voice rang in her ears. Don't move. Then a bright sword blade stabbed. This made Midona and Link very tired. Midona's mouth was bleeding, and she turned around and complained to Link, could you have come earlier? Link smiled gently and said, I'm sorry. He was not good at quibbling or sweet talk. Midona smiled slightly. You have successfully acted as my hero again. Her pretty face suddenly came close, as if to kiss Link. There was also Zelda next to him. Link was about to dodge, but suddenly Midona's body changed and turned back into the little girl with a heavy iron crown. Her 2 little hands were placed on Link's shoulders, and Link took the opportunity to hug her small body. Midona fell asleep. This sudden battle made Midona very tired, and she needed to recover from her injuries by sleeping. Link handed the sleeping Midona to Zelda, who came beside him. Then he walked towards the Sky Princess, who was fighting with the Washang Princess. Link's face was very annoyed, and his heart was also very annoyed. Zelda said, it seems that Ganon left a curse in the body of the Washang Princess. The strong breath of Ganon here has activated the curse in the body of the Sky Princess. The Washang Princess suddenly shouted, Link, leave the Sky Princess to me. She even said that Link was very reluctant to hurt Zelda. In order to avoid Link being in a dilemma, the Washang Princess decided to do it herself. At this moment, the Washang Princess chopped the Sky Princess to the ground with a sword. Then she stabbed the fallen Sky Princess in the heart with 2 royal swords. This scared Link. Do you have a grudge against yourself? Why are you so cruel? Exclamation mark. The Washang Princess stabbed the Sky Princess in the chest with a sword. Then the chests of the 3 princesses began to bleed. Zelda looked at the wet red clothes on her chest and didn't know what to say. Yair also looked left and right, wondering what happened to the 3 girls. Link rushed over to stop him, but Zelda hurriedly stopped him and shook his head. It's okay. Just leave it to Zelda. We will solve our own problems. Link. Chapter 278, The Second Dragon. Link looked at the Washang Princess in shock. The fierce expression on the Washang Princess's face now made Link a little scared. Such a sword would definitely not show mercy. Isn't it too cruel? Zelda blocked Link and smiled. I believe Zelda knows her limits. Link looked at Zelda, his mouth twitching, and he cried in his heart, do you know your limits? The corners of your mouths are bleeding. It's already bleeding heavily. Okay. The Washan princess slashed down fiercely with a knife. Zelda's face turned pale, and the three girls vomited blood at the same time. Link hurriedly supported Zelda. Zelda turned back and stared at the Washan princess with a confused look on her face and asked carefully, "You?" The Washan princess said in a deep voice, "It's okay." As soon as she said it was okay, the clothes on the chest of the Washan princess were covered with blood, and her chest was wet. Combined with her current expression, it was very scary. Zelda secretly asked Link, "Does that Zelda have any thoughts of self-deprecation?" "How should I know? You don't even know yourself, and you ask me?" Exclamation mark. "Didn't you just say that you believe in the Washan princess?" Link supported Zelda, whose chest was bleeding, and suddenly felt a headache. How could he solve this problem? I heard it." The voice of the Washan princess suddenly came. Zelda's face froze, and her smile was very awkward. The Washan princess chuckled and said, "I know. There is only one life for the three of us. I won't be so careful." Stabbed and slashed down fiercely again. The Sky Princess struggled desperately, but stopped talking, and her body showed a particularly twisted posture. Hurting the Sky Princess would hurt herself. The Washan Princess was also in a very reluctant state at this time, but her tone was firm. The vitality of the life fruit hard candy in Zelda's body has not been completely digested. This injury is not enough to kill her, and I must find a way to destroy the hidden curse left by Ganon in her body. Well, it's too cruel and too difficult for you to do this, Link. And the curse is hidden in a very strange way, and only our Zelda can feel it. So I have to do it. Found it. The Washan princess suddenly stopped talking, but focused her attention, and stabbed out decisively. Then there was a clear sound of glass breaking. Even Link and Zelda could hear it clearly. They all knew that the Washan princess had destroyed the curse in the Sky Princess. It's been solved, but there is still some Ganon contamination in the Sky Princess body, but these can probably be repaired with her own rejection ability. The Washan princess hurriedly drew her sword. The Ganon contamination on the Sky Princess face and body suddenly evaporated. The Washan princess was exhausted. She said, "Link, protect us. Something may come to attack us." Then she knelt on the ground and panted. This thrilling journey and rescue consumed too much of her energy. The Sky Princess lay on the ground with a blank look. Her chest and abdomen were bloody, but the wound on her abdomen was slowly healing. The severe scarlet color of the Sky Princess also dimmed and returned to its original light blue. Link hurried over. Suddenly, a ball of blood burst out of the Sky Princess eyes, forming a twisted scarlet figure, screaming and attacking the Washan Princess. Link thrust his sword forward, releasing the sword light and cutting it in two. Just as the scarlet figure disintegrated, the ground began to shake. After the Sky Princess body was repaired, the other two princesses also improved. The Sky Princess came to her senses, sat up, and covered her face with her hands. "What did I do?" Zelda hurried forward to comfort her. "This is not your fault." Then the vibrations around became more intense. The Washan princess panted for a while, barely stood up, and said, "Let's leave quickly." Link nodded. But at this time, he had some doubts in his heart. He was sure that these strange black, white, and red figures must be guarding something under Ganon's instructions. What could it be? But a large number of stones began to fall from the top of the cave. Link didn't have time to think for too long. He slashed upwards with force, directly cutting through the soil and stones above, and in an instant he could even see the sky. The teeth were very considerate and suddenly grew larger, grabbing the Sky Princess and the Washan Princess with one claw each, and then tied the brown bear with its tail. Link also hurriedly hugged Zelda with one hand. With the other hand, he used the dragon scale sword to break the ground and slash. After crossing a height of nearly 200 meters, several people flew up. Link landed on the ground. Fangar was exhausted from dragging the two people and the bear. He panted and angrily slapped the brown bear's face with his tail, thinking it was too heavy. Fangar quickly became smaller and was so tired that he could hardly fly. The surface of this area collapsed one after another. Zelda said, "It seems that this trip can only be done like this." The Sky Princess remained silent. Fangar suddenly heard a faint dragon roar, which sounded very shrill. Fangar hurriedly told Link. Link also vaguely heard a tragic dragon cry. But Link was in a dilemma. The three princesses were in a very bad state at the moment. This area was about to collapse. If they were not taken away quickly, they would be in danger. But if Link took them away first, I'm afraid that the speaker of the dragon roar would miss the best time for rescue. At this time, the brown bear suddenly barked and touched Zelda's hand with its furry head. It looked very simple. Zelda asked, "Are you going to let us sit on your body?" The brown bear barked and nodded. Link stepped forward and patted the brown bear's head, saying, "Then I'll leave it to you." Then Princess Washang and Princess Sky sat on the brown bear's back, with Lazy Fang on their heads. Zelda held mid-owner, and the flying bird spread out like a big shield under her feet. The brown bear roared very heroically, then carried the two princesses, and ran away quickly. Although he was clumsy and fat, his speed was not slow at all. Zelda followed him, flying shakily. Zelda's control of balance was obviously not as good as Link's, and her posture was very thrilling. Link was the only one left here, and the ground quickly collapsed. Link fell into the cracks created by the violent earthquake. The surrounding rocks fell one after another, and Link let out a long roar and called out. Then a faint dragon roar was heard. Link flapped his wings, used the dragon scale sword as an excavator, rushed into the map, and fell into a cave. Link quickly transformed into a shadow wolf, and ran quickly in the cave in the direction of the dragon's roar. The cave behind him collapsed quickly. While running quickly, Link looked behind him and observed the cave. He found that the diameter of this cave was just enough for a dragon to drill through. Could it be that there was a dragon here, pretending to be an earthworm, loosening the soil, and drilling for fun? Chapter 279 Rescue Nialang. Link turned into a shadow wolf and ran in the cave. The cave behind him collapsed rapidly. Link suddenly felt a piercing cold in front of him. He immediately used the Ice Maker skill to dispel it. Then the front came to an end again, but Link did not stop, but ran straight into it. Bang! Link broke the wall directly. With a click, first the stone, then the ice, only to hear the creaking sound of cracks. Link broke through the ice layer 1 meter behind the wall, and rushed into a strange cave. I saw that the whole place was covered with a layer of ice. Under the ice, there were also many corpses of plant monsters, and their hideous faces were as if they had swallowed a charcoal fire. In the middle of this cave, there was a huge pool of water, which was full of dark red liquid, and exuded the fishy smell of blood. Link yawned again, and turned into a human again. The smell of blood was too pungent, and Link's own wolf nose was very sensitive to the smell. Since this place is covered by a hard layer of ice, the vibration of the cave is much lighter than the violent earthquake outside. Link walked up step by step. He saw that there seemed to be some shadows flowing under the central blood pool. Just when Link was guessing that there was a monster hidden in the blood pool, the blood pool suddenly boiled, and the screams of the dragon and some hideous creatures came. Link hurriedly covered his ears with ice to block some sounds. This is the disadvantage of sensitive 5 senses, which are too sensitive to the smell and sound of the outside world. But since he heard the sound of the dragon's roar, Link immediately knew what was hidden in the blood pool. So he directly poured cold air into the blood pool, but he soon found that it was wrong, because the cold air seemed to disappear when it invaded the blood pool, and there was not even a little cold air on the surface of the blood pool. Link looked at the surrounding ice again. The air temperature here is quite low, but the blood pool remained boiling. It seems that these scarlet liquids have a higher resistance to cold. Helplessly, Link walked up to it. Then he took out Mistidin, which he hadn't used for a long time, and lashed it hard into the blood pool. He felt as if he had caught something, so he pulled it hard. Then he saw a light blue dragon, which he had pulled out. Nialang? Link was shocked. He didn't expect that Nialang was imprisoned again. When Link pulled Nialang out of the blood pool seemed to come alive and rushed directly towards Nialang. In the blood, there were many figures of various colors, exactly the same as the 3 strange figures killed by Link. Nialang and Link had the best relationship. He howled at Link twice, meaning that as long as you rescue me, you can pick any scales and dragon claws on my body. When Link heard this, his forehead was immediately covered with black lines. Why am I a bully who covets your treasures in your heart? But his men did not relax, and directly dragged Nialang behind him. Link stood in front of Nialang, facing the bloody pool filled with human or ghost figures. Nilong's body was much smaller, but after the transformation of Fangaea, Link knew that this kind of dragon could change its shape at will. Nilong's body had many traces of corrosion. Compared to being in this pool of blood, he suffered a lot. He was unlucky enough. He was imprisoned by Ganon before, and his back was full of dirty Ganon pollution and disgusting eyeballs. This time was even worse. He was directly pressed into the blood pool and imprisoned by Ganon's men. I guess his stomach was full of dirty blood in the pool. Nilong shouted and told Link about his experience. This pool of blood was formed by the wronged soul of one of Ganon's dead men. He came to capture Nilong, hoping to infiltrate his evil will into Nilong's body, so that Nilong would become an evil dragon and be driven by the devil Ganon. Nilong knew that he could not beat this bloody pool, so he hid his body under this primitive mountain forest. But he was still discovered by the bloodstains, chased, and burrowed around in the ground, escaping by changing the size of his body. And all these strange caves underground were created by Nilong. Link felt pity and laughter when he heard it. Nilong was different from the other two proud dragons. He was also imprisoned for nearly 100 years. The long-term erosion and pain of being polluted by Ganon made him less dignified. If it were all Aang and Pharaoh, they would draw and dance their bodies that were not good at fighting and fight the enemy to the death if they knew they were not strong enough. But Nilong put aside his pride as a dragon and burrowed around in the ground like an earthworm. Link reached behind and touched Nilong's head. Although Nilong's self-esteem was not that strong, he was still very angry after being chased for so long and forced to burrow around underground like an earthworm. Link knew, and he whispered, "I will avenge you." The bloodstain, making strange cries, quickly pounced on Link. Link could sense the powerful corrosive power from a distance. He had fought 3 figures before, and they were probably clones of this bloodstain. Multiple screams came from the bloodstain, one after another, and the voices were all the same. "Link, you will see with your own eyes how darkness weakens at the same time. The strength of the bloodstain is 20 times that of those strange figures." Even now, Link still feels a little difficult. He gave up the head-on tactic and summoned the Hylian shield. When in doubt, use the shield to counter. This is Link's code of conduct. Boom. Link's shield counter skill is extremely strange. It was just a ball of bloodstain rushing over, but it still bounced it back. Looking at Nilong behind him, he opened his mouth. He hurried over to cheer for Link. Link's mouth twitched. It seems that this dragon has completely abandoned its style as a dragon. Oolong reincarnated into a little dragon who can only act coquettishly, and Nilong looked like this again. Link really wanted to know what the most violent and worst relationship of Pharaoh Dragon was like now. The first dragon Link saw was the Pharaoh Dragon. Whenever he had time, he would go over with a pyraglyder and shoot off a few scales and claws with arrows. So Pharaoh Dragon was the dragon that annoyed Link the most. Link thought of some bad things. Both Oral Dragon and Neel Dragon were imprisoned by Ganon's power and suffered. I'm afraid Pharaoh Dragon's situation is not ideal. It seems that he needs to travel more in the future. Maybe there will be some great gains. Link thought wildly and clenched the Master Sword in his hand. Bloodstain screamed and rushed over again, making a harsh sound. The brightness around him suddenly dimmed, and the cave and the ice were filled with ominous shadows. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 280 Long Howl. Link and Nilong suddenly felt many hallucinations appearing in front of their eyes. Their movements suddenly became sluggish. The blood rushed towards Link, and suddenly the blood coagulated, turning into a blood-red knight riding a dark red skeleton horse, stabbing Link with a gun. The holy triangle on Link's chest suddenly released light. The illusion in front of Link disappeared, and the Master Sword in his hand hummed, and his fighting spirit was high. Bang! The sword and the gun collided with each other. Link's body retreated 2 steps, and a swift force of the cannon curse came from the Master Sword, about to invade Link's body. But suddenly the Master Sword shone, and the shadow inside the sword suddenly shattered, making a sound of gauze tearing. Link carefully stroked the sword, and the Master Sword seemed to be more and more spiritual. The light of Link's body burst out, and the dark cave suddenly became bright. Those screaming voices, as well as the ghosts in the ice, dissipated one after another. Time stopped. Link held up the blood-stained Blood Knight with his hand, and then changed his weapon to a dragon scale sword. Link thrust forward with his sword, and the sword burst out, and hit the Blood Knight. This was not the end. Link turned around, and took back his sword, and directly used his favorite spinning dance and slashing. His body and the dragon scale sword danced into a group of red shadows, like a wheel hitting the Blood Knight. Link didn't want to tangle with him for too long. He didn't even know whether the three princesses had left smoothly. He fought quickly. A series of spinning and slashing directly sent Link into a short state of sleepiness, so he summoned Darkle. Darkle roared, and a light blue figure appeared. He held a rock-breaking sword in his hand, and shouted at Link, "Just borrow my power." Then he imitated Link's swinging movements. He slashed directly at the Blood Knight. Bang! Link finished a set of moves. Then he came behind the Blood Knight. The golden chains on the Blood Knight's body made a rapid sound of thump, 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 and then exploded quickly. The damage that Link had previously dealt concentrated on the Blood Knight, directly exploding his body. Blood spurted everywhere, and he couldn't even maintain his shape. Just when the Blood Knight had just condensed into shape, Link stabbed the back of the Blood Knight's head with the Master Sword, and it pierced through his brain. The Blood Knight's body stiffened, and the red skeleton horse under him stood up in shock. Link leaped and sat on the horse's back. He patted the red skeleton horse's butt. Link liked horses very much. If this kind of skeleton horse could block the smell of the dirty Ganon curse power in its body, Link would definitely find a way to adopt it and make it a companion for Epona. What a pity. Link smiled and put his hands on the Blood Knight's shoulders. Since using the time stop skill, the Blood Knight had no room to resist. Link had been controlling the situation and beating him back and forth. Link's body suddenly released a large amount of lightning, and the surrounding space was covered with a layer of white lightning. Behind Link appeared the figure of Azappo, who crossed his arms proudly, squinted at the Blood Knight, and said with a smile, "Is this Ganon's minion? It looks disgusting and dirty. Let me use lightning to help purify this dirty soul." The lightning strengthened again. Nilong, who was cheering on the side, hurriedly covered his eyes with his two short claws. He thought of his good friend Pharaoh Dragon. I'm afraid that even Pharaoh Dragon's electricity would not have such a strong power. In the dazzling lightning, the outline of the Blood Knight was illuminated. The Blood Knight screamed, "This world! I curse." Then the outline in the white lightning suddenly dissipated little by little, together with the red skeleton horse that Link liked very much and thought was very cool. Link fell to the ground. The ice surface began to crack when Link electrocuted the Blood Knight to death. Suddenly, several ice blow lights came out of the Blood Knight's body and were injected into Niurlong's body. Niurlong's body expanded rapidly. The traces of corrosion on his body also disappeared one after another. After Niurlong's body became huge, he regained his original high pitch. He called out to Link and asked Link to sit on his back. Link sat on it with a smile. Then Niurlong roared and flew directly into the sky, and the surrounding soil collapsed. Niurlong flew directly into the sky. He breathed in the fresh air and looked at this desolate scenery. He couldn't help but burst out with passion and let out a shout. The whole of Russia could hear Niurlong's roar. Just when Niurlong burst out with passion, Link covered his ears and hit Niurlong's head hard, thinking he was noisy. Niurlong's voice suddenly became hoarse, and he looked back at Link and smiled embarrassedly. Link looked down and saw a bottomless pit appearing in this desolate primitive jungle. The three princesses who had come to the safe area, including Fang, Midona, and Brown Bear, sat under an ancient tree, waiting for Link. Midona woke up faintly and asked, "Where is Link? Where did he go?" Sky Princess smiled. "He went to look for something." Midona was startled when she saw Sky Princess and hurriedly hid behind the tree. Sky Princess' face was stiff and her expression was a little sad. Sky Princess said, "I'm sorry." Midona came out, her expression was relaxed, and she smiled and said, "It seems that you have recovered." Zelda smiled. "The curse in her body has been removed by Zelda. Don't worry." Sky Princess said in a deep voice, "It's just like a nightmare." Midona ran to hug Sky Princess and smiled. "Don't think too much. Don't think too much." This kind of thing is inevitable. Brown Bear put his back on the bark and rubbed it, making Fang, who was resting on his head, feel a little bumpy. Fang cried out irritably, and Brown Bear immediately dared not move. Although Yaya is small now, she is a dragon after all, and the Brown Bear dare not go against Yaya's wishes. Yaya was just about to go to bed, but the Brown Bear ruined her mood, so she flew over sullenly, looking into the distance, waiting for Link. She likes to sleep very much, but she only likes to sleep in Link's arms. Now Link is gone again, making Yaya feel very depressed. Suddenly, Yaya heard a clear dragon roar, which made her feel numb all over, as if a long-lost memory was about to be restored. Zelda suddenly sat up, pointed to the sky and said, "Look. It's Nilang." Suddenly, a light blue dragon appeared in the sky, flying in the sky, roaring freely. But for some reason, the roar suddenly stopped. Chapter 281 The Proof of Order is opened. Let's not talk about this long roar, which caused panic among people all over the world. The terrified Russian authorities thought that the second Tunguska explosion had occurred. The sight shifted back to Link. Link sat on top of Nilang's head, overlooking the primitive forest with a strange particle below him. Between breaths, it was all cold air passing through the sky, which made people's hearts tremble. The spirit that was slightly drowsy, because of the turbid air underground, was also cleared. Nilang suddenly shouted, and his voice was full of surprise. Link patted Nilang's head, and asked him to land. Link had already seen the three princesses cheering under the shade of the tree in front of him, and he couldn't help but smile. It seemed that the Brown Bear did not disappoint him, and bravely took the princess to a safe area. Nilang went down. Soon realizing his doubts, a bright red dragon flew over with a cheerful cry, and rushed towards Nilang. It was Olang. The three dragons were in charge of the Fountain of Courage, the Fountain of Strength, and the Fountain of Wisdom respectively. They were all born in the first ray of light in the world. They are strange creatures that have survived from ancient times to the present day, and they roam in three parts of the Hyrule continent. For some reasons, they have never met, but they all know each other, and have seen each other on the vast Hyrule continent. Nilang thought that Olang would pounce on him, but Yaya suddenly didn't even look at him, and pounced on Link, and ran into Link's arms, which made Link grin. Yaya's red head came out of Link's arms, and looked at the big dragon under Link curiously. She called twice. Nilang also responded. Although neither of them used human language, Link could still understand what they said. The two dragons were communicating with each other. After seeing Nilang, Yaya recovered some memories. She was calling Nilang with interest. After all, Yaya had never seen the same species as her since her rebirth, and she felt very close to Nilang. At this time, Link suddenly heard a broken sound in his heart. The holy triangle in the body is composed of 3 triangles, and several certificates of bravery are piled up on the lower left. At this moment, the holy triangle is emitting a faint golden light. Link's body contains the power of the holy triangle, a large triangle composed of 3 small triangles. They are courage in the lower left corner, wisdom in the lower right corner, and power in the upper corner. These 3 triangles form a larger triangle, which constitutes the 3 original powers blessed by the goddess Hylia. The triangle of courage has begun to be filled with certificates of bravery, and at this moment, there is a slight sound of breaking from the triangle of wisdom. Suddenly, with a ding, 3 certificates of order appeared in the triangle of wisdom. The power running in Link's body suddenly changed drastically, so that Link's eyes were shining with brilliant golden light, as if hot liquid metal tears were about to burst out. The energy in Link's body circulated in his body like a river on the continent, and spread all over his body like tree roots, dense and full of vitality. And at this moment, as soon as the proof of order appeared, these energy veins suddenly burst into a strong light, tearing Link's body, causing Link's body to ooze a lot of blood. His body twitched, and he felt an unimaginable pain. But this pain did not last Link too long. Just 3 seconds later, the energy veins in Link's body suddenly changed direction and became orderly. If the energy veins before were a mess of tree roots or hair, the direction of each branch of the energy veins now seemed to have been carefully corrected and diverted, becoming orderly. The efficiency of energy circulation in Link's body increased by 2 times. He clearly felt the changes in his body. It seemed that, because he rescued Nilang, the wisdom triangle in his body was also released. Yaya was frightened and pulled Link's head to look at him carefully. The light of Link's body converged, and he opened his eyes. He smiled and touched Ye's head, indicating that he was fine. Nialang howled twice, and asked Link how he was. Link told Nialang about the changes that had taken place in himself. Nialang suddenly fell silent, and it was unknown what he was thinking. Nialang landed. Link walked over with Yaya in his arms. Zelda stepped forward, touched Nialang's big head, and smiled. So it was you who hid in this land. No wonder Yaya suddenly looked strange. Yaya also called out twice, and acted like a spoiled child towards Link. Nialang looked very strange, because although the three dragons were peaceful creatures, and unwilling to fight, they still had different tempers. Nialang had the mildest temper, while Pharaoh was the most manic, and always the most courageous. Dragons have no gender, but different personality tendencies. Or was the only one of the three dragons that tended to be feminine. Seeing the most courageous, Or was hiding in Link's arms, and acting like a little human girl, this strange sense of disobedience was so strong. As if she felt Nialang's gaze, Yaya glared at him fiercely. Yaya had recovered some memories, so she knew what Nialang was thinking. Link went over first, and pulled the hand of the Sky Princess. He knew that the Sky Princess felt guilty, because he had caused trouble. The Sky Princess sighed, and didn't want to look at Link. When she found that Link had held her hand, the Sky Princess shrank back, as if she had been electrocuted. Link was startled. In the brief touch just now, he felt something was wrong. The Washan Princess looked at Link with a smile and whispered, "Your energy seems to be much more orderly." Midona flew over Link. She bumped directly into Link's arms and accidentally pressed down on Fangar's tail, which made her very angry, and grinned at Midona. Midona's two small hands were on Link's chest, blinking her big eyes, and then she pointed at Nialang. She asked with a giggle, Link, our relationship is so good. Can you agree to a small request of mine?" "You said?" Link frowned and smiled in response. Midona suddenly clapped her hands happily. "Then I'll take it as your consent. This blue dragon is my pet." "Huh?" Nialang shouted, staring at Midona. Then he shook his huge head twice. "Link has agreed. Why don't you want to?" Midona flew over and stared at Nialang. Under the effect of shock, her body turned into an adult state, and she walked over like a queen, twisting her waist. The reality gem in her hand condensed into a huge hammer. Link's eyes twitched. "I didn't agree." Chapter 280 To Nialang Travels. Jarvis retires. Midona walked over, stared at Nialang, and threatened in a low voice, "If you don't agree, I will hit your head hard with this big hammer." Nialang blinked. He could feel the power of the huge hammer made of reality gems. Then he suddenly flew into the sky, roared, and flew away quickly. Yaya and Link looked at each other. Nialang just said that he was going to have a trip and look for the Pharaoh dragon that had not yet appeared. It's just such a big dragon, flying around everywhere. What do you think the people on Earth will think? I'm afraid the Orientals will go crazy. But Link was also generous. Let Nialang go. Anyway, the Earth is a mess now. There is no fear of more chaos. At this time, the phone that had made great contributions to Link suddenly remembered. It was the Auravac Vertical Bar DC, Tony's exclusive ringtone. Zelda opened it, and the image popped up. Tony's virtual image appeared above the mobile phone screen. Tony asked anxiously, "Zelda, Link, what happened over there? Why did I detect a high concentration of energy fluctuations? Did Tunguska explode again?" Zelda smiled and said, "Nothing happened. We just released a dragon." Tony breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat from his head. "Okay, I was scared to death." "Wait, you said a dragon?" Zelda and Link nodded. Tony stretched his head over and looked left and right. He only saw the Washan Princess standing quietly on one side, the sad-looking Sky Princess, the angry adult Midona, and Yaya playing around Link's neck. No other creatures could be seen. No, there was also a brown bear lying on the ground and rubbing against it for some reason. Zelda said, "Nialang flew to play somewhere else." Tony's eyes widened, and he sat back in the chair, rubbing his temples. Spreading out his hands, he shook his head twice and said helplessly, "Kids, what do you think? Are you releasing a wild animal out of kindness? Do you know that this is also illegal? Especially a dragon that only appears in Eastern mythology." Suddenly, Thor's furry head came over curiously. Eastern mythology. I'm quite curious. Hi. Link. Hi. Zelda. Hi. Another Zelda. Hi. The third Zelda. Tony pushed Thor's head away. Suddenly, Natasha's head stretched out from the other end of the virtual image. Natasha looked at everyone, and suddenly her expression was a little hesitant. Because everyone present, 3 Zeldas, because of the relationship of 3 people and 1 life, all had a lot of blood on their chests, which was very scary. And Link, because of the energy vein repair just now, a lot of blood came out of his body, and his clothes were also red and wet. So this scared Natasha. Link shook his head to indicate that they were fine. Natasha raised her eyebrows. She thought it was someone else's blood. After all, there was no one on Earth who hurt Zelda. If someone showed up, Link would definitely kill him violently. Natasha looked serious. I'm sorry to ruin your leisure time. Link and the 3 princesses smiled helplessly and looked at each other. Their travel time had been ruined long ago. Natasha continued, recently, Tony's macro robots have detected some unusual movements in the Hydra base. I'm afraid they are using the Mind Gem Scepter to conduct some kind of experiment. We can't guarantee what consequences will be caused after their experiment. Therefore, we need to go out in advance to wipe out the last remaining Hydra troops. Link nodded. Anyway, the Hydra base was not far away. Jarvis' voice rang. Link, 3 princesses, I have transferred the plan to wipe out Hydra to your mobile phones. Remember to check it. Seeing Jarvis, Link suddenly thought of something else. He was about to experience the Ultron incident. Without Ganon's intervention, Link is sure to save the residents of Sokovia and Quicksilver. But Link remembered something he had overlooked before. That is Jarvis. Jarvis will eventually combine with the Mind Stone to become Vision. Tony's closest friend will completely disappear after this incident. This is a pity. Link has always had an obsession to redeem all the regrets in the plot. Ethan, Coulson, Quicksilver, Loki, etc. So is there any way to save Jarvis and make Vision appear? It seems that we have to find a way to convince Tony to temporarily change the artificial intelligence butler. Tony, Link suddenly said. Suddenly a hand reached out and pushed Natasha's head aside. Tony appeared in the virtual image again, panting, and asked, "What's wrong, Link?" Link is becoming less and less talkative, and he won't speak until the critical moment. So every time Link speaks, it is for something very important, so Tony takes it very seriously. Link said, "Tony, how about giving Jarvis a vacation? Let's switch to another artificial butler." Jarvis spoke with emotion, which was rare. Link, no need. My computing mechanism is very advanced. It is conservatively estimated that I can assist Mr. Tony in his work for 10 years. I don't need to retire. Link said, not retirement, but rest. How about you come to work in Zelda's phone first? Tony looked at Link in silence and suddenly nodded and said, that's right, Jarvis, it's time to give you a vacation. I'll check the performance of other artificial intelligence butlers by the way. For example, Friday and others. Tony always felt that Link had the ability to predict the future, but this kid was taciturn and didn't like to explain. So Tony was very confused. But Link spoke to Tony about Jarvis so rarely, so he must have his purpose. So he decided to do what Link said. Jarvis said, yes, sir. There was a little grievance in his tone. Link felt sorry in his heart and apologized to Friday silently. I'm sorry, I have to sacrifice you this time. Although Jarvis and Friday are both programs. But Link always kept the idea that children often have in his heart, that is, all things are spirits, and all things in the world have their own will. Machinery and other tools are extensions of human will. Jarvis is the crystallization of Tony's wisdom, and they have been together for such a long time. Link is always willing to believe that he is a life. Compared with Jarvis, Friday is still a spare, without a long work history and human traces, just like an embryo. Link can barely accept her sacrifice. He feels sorry for Friday. Although Tony knows this idea, he will definitely laugh at Link's childishness. At this time, Link still doesn't know what consequences his spur-of-the-moment decision has brought. Chapter 283, The Superhero Who Refuses to Be Ordinary. Although Natasha and Rogers have prepared a complete and thorough plan, as well as 2 backup plans for special situations. But in practice, they still rely on reckless rushing. The fighter jets landed near the Hydra base. Rogers and others were waiting for Link's arrival. But Tony had already started to let the Iron Man suits and the equipment device pop out one by one, sticking to Tony like chewing gum. Hearing the sound of the equipment, Rogers frowned and turned his head, and saw Tony holding the visor with his hands, to install it on his face. Natasha brushed her newly permed hair with her hand and asked, "You put on the suit so early, aren't you hot?" Tony smiled and said, "No, you may not know, there is a refrigerator in my suit, which maintains a constant temperature of 26 degrees, which is suitable for humans. And the suit also has a great full body massage function, which is good for physical and mental health. Besides, it's time for us to go to war." Hawkeye said, "Wait a minute, Link and the others will be here soon." Tony put his hands together and rubbed his hands together, making a harsh metal friction sound. Rogers rubbed his ears, and Pepper also rubbed his 2 little tentacles into a ball. Tony said, "That's the reason. Please. We can't rely on Link to solve everything. We are also very strong, okay? We are each the protagonist. We can't always let Link steal the limelight." Then Tony hooked his finger at Pepper and said with a bewitching look, "Come on, Pepper, let's have a contest between men." When Pepper heard this, his eyes lit up and he nodded. Rogers frowned. "Pepper, a good soldier is one who obeys orders." Pepper's 2 tentacles drooped slightly again, and his heart was shaken. Rogers said, "Don't seduce Pepper." But Tony smiled contemptuously and said in a soft tone, "Pepper, I have prepared a new version of the Iron Man suit for you. It's more handsome and more powerful. Come on, let's show your heroic spirit." Oh. Pepper's eyes lit up, and he was persuaded at once. As for whether to obey orders or not, he no longer took it seriously. The armor flew off Pepper piece by piece, and then Pepper turned into a carefully polished golden red potato. It looked funny, but Pepper was surprised and jumped up and down. Tony smiled proudly. "This battle suit is scaled according to the new one I'm wearing, and it has a perfect balance between power consumption and power. Pepper basically has the ability to destroy a small country. So cool." Pepper shouted. Natasha and Rogers shouted, "What are you doing? Giving Pepper such a powerful weapon? Aren't you afraid that he will get into trouble?" When Pepper heard this, he sat on Tony's head in a daze, poking with his 2 little hands, and began to question whether he had the ability to wear this armor. He thought he had really done something against the law. Tony touched Pepper's head and glared at them. "I'm responsible for Pepper's trouble. He has his own self-control and sense of responsibility. My god, your tone is a bit too much like the tone of government officials towards Lincoln Banner. Pepper didn't do anything bad." Pepper nodded aggrievedly. Tony clapped his hands suddenly. "Let's go. The Avengers are going. Resolve the battle before Link arrives. We can't just be bystanders cheering for Link." Thor also picked up the hammer and smiled. "Yes. We can't rely too much on Link. It's time to let you see who is the strongest in the Avengers. It's..." Banner walked over, put one hand on his chest, and smiled. "It's me, Thor. It seems that a battle is needed to prove the truth." Tony saw that he had successfully raised the fire, and shouted, "What are you waiting for? Attack." Then Tony, Banner, and Thor rushed up in a hurry. Pepper followed closely behind him in armor, running on the ground. Finally, he suddenly remembered that he could fly, so he sped up and flew into the sky, disappearing in the distance like a small cannonball. Then a large explosion of fire broke out. Tony smiled stiffly. It seems that Pepper has figured out the correct use of the armor. Hawkeye and Natasha smiled bitterly and looked at each other. "That's right. Our combat capabilities are already very strong, and we don't need to wait for Link." Then the 2 looked at Rogers. Rogers also sighed and smiled. "Let's go." That Loki was drinking coffee at a small table, very reserved or pretentious. Loki smiled slightly. "Then I don't have to go. I'll help you guard the plane." Rogers was about to nod. Suddenly, a hammer flew quickly from outside the cabin. Loki stared and saw the hammer scratch his nose, and then it cleverly hooked Loki's neck. Hooked Loki back to Thor's side. "Brother, I won't go." Natasha smiled and said, "I'll go drive." 10 minutes later. Rogers was knocked over by a puff, and he hadn't seen the attacker's direction. He hurriedly shouted with the headphones he carried with him, "There is a very fast enemy." I was hit. Then Hawkeye was also knocked over by a puff, and he felt his intestines in a mess. But he clearly used his Hawkeye to capture a cute boy wearing grey clothes, grey hair, goggles and honest headphones. The grey-haired boy stuffed a chocolate in his mouth and suddenly disappeared. Who should I scare next? Quicksilver adjusted his headphones and then saw Banner running around in a daze, with a naughty smile on his lips. Then he immediately rushed over. Bang! Quicksilver knocked Banner down. Banner was startled. "Who is it?" "It's me." Quicksilver reached out to pull Banner. Banner just subconsciously held Quicksilver's hand, and when he was halfway through pulling, Quicksilver suddenly let go and suddenly disappeared in front of Banner. In Quicksilver's vision, time around him suddenly quieted down. Then a bullet appeared in front of him. Quicksilver scratched his cheek, took out a graffiti pen, and drew a smiley face on the hot bullet. Then he turned around and saw Natasha shooting. At this moment, this Slavic beauty kept her body tense and shot, with a serious expression. Quicksilver thought she was too serious, so he walked over and drew an eye patch and a beard for Natasha. Then time returned to normal. Quicksilver appeared behind Natasha, and Natasha turned her head hurriedly. Quicksilver smiled, and the chocolate in his mouth felt a little too sweet. Quicksilver said, "Sorry, I don't want to hurt you. But you Avengers, please go back. I prefer the X-Men version of Quicksilver, so I created it that way." Chapter 284 Subduing Quicksilver. Natasha said, "Where did this kid come from?" and turned around and kicked him. But Quicksilver disappeared again. At high speed, time slowed down in front of his eyes, and only the song in the headphones kept playing at a normal frequency. Quicksilver slyly lowered Natasha's head and made a gesture, as if he was about to roll over. Then he immediately slowed down. Natasha rolled away in a daze. Banner saw Natasha fall, and his whole body turned green and his muscles swelled. He turned into the Hulk state. Then he rushed towards Quicksilver quickly. Ugh! Quicksilver was startled. He hurriedly ran away, and while running away, he didn't forget to eat a piece of candy. The Avengers were knocked down by Quicksilver. Hawkeye was knocked down by Quicksilver again, and next to him was Rogers, who was also knocked down. Hawkeye gritted his teeth and stood up. "I don't want Link to see us in such a shameful state when he comes over." "Link." Quicksilver suddenly stopped and showed his body. He took off his headphones with a surprised look on his face. "He's here too? He's my idol." Rogers stood up. "So you're beating up your idol's friends?" Quicksilver put his hands on his hips. "I don't want to, but this is my mission, to stop you." Rogers began to persuade with his outstanding charm. "Don't you consider changing organizations to take missions? You are outstanding. How about joining the Avengers?" The relaxed look on Quicksilver's face suddenly disappeared, and he became serious, shaking his head. "I don't want to." Then he disappeared immediately. Rogers looked at Hawkeye. "He seems to be bewitched by a power similar to the Mind Stone. We must find a way to subdue him." Hawkeye said, "Such a fast speed. Link should be able to solve it." Link asked the three princesses to take their time while he took Midona and Fang and rode the motorcycle specially made for him by Tony at a high speed. He received Rogers's alarm, and as soon as he heard the description, he knew that it was Quicksilver who was making trouble. Link was confused for a moment. So, Quicksilver has awakened his super speed ability and has come into contact with Hydra again. Is the world line so tight? Now Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch no longer have hatred with Tony. Why are they hostile to the Avengers again? What is the reason? Midona explored Link's mental state and said with a smile, "Have the two children you saved become rebellious teenagers now?" Link shook his head. He didn't understand what was going on. But since Quicksilver dared to come out and make trouble, he would beat him up. Anyway, except for Natasha, all the other Avengers were beaten by Link. This is probably the practice of the Avengers. Link rushed into the battlefield quickly and blew a whistle. He was addicted to learning from Yondu. An iron sword flew out and poked everywhere, directly killing the Hydra troops attacking from the surroundings. The iron sword was like a needle threading a needle through a piece of cloth, poking every warrior close to Link. Then a large army rushed over. Link whistled, and the iron sword flew over, and then bright lightning appeared in his eyes. Suddenly, the clouds in the sky became gloomy, spinning like stirred blueberry ice cream, and a terrible lightning fell down. The attacking troops were directly blown up like cherry blossoms. Link soon saw Natasha, who was trying to appease Hulk. Natasha was cautious, fearing that she would be slapped to pieces by Hulk. Seeing Hulk's eyes softening again, Link rushed over quickly, stopped beside Hulk, and patted Hulk's belly. Midona said tenderly, "Green fat man, Link asked you to change back." Natasha opened her eyes wide. Hulk hates others saying he is fat. And Hulk was really angry when he heard Midona dare to call him fat. But looking at Link's almost transparent blue eyes, he didn't dare to attack immediately. After being beaten by Link several times, Hulk couldn't help but expose his wildness and wanted to challenge Link. But without exception, they were all beaten by Link in various ways. Now in the Avengers, besides Loki, the one who fears Link the most is Hulk. So Hulk turned back obediently, and Banner panted, pulled up his pants and panted, saying, "Link, there is a very strange person." Midona said, "Link knows. Just ask where he ran to." And, "Natasha, what happened to your face?" Natasha covered her face and asked, "What happened to my face?" Midona said seriously, "Someone has made a profound abstract art painting expression on your face." When Natasha took out the mirror to look at her face, Banner said with the weak memory left by Hulk, he went over there. Hey. Just as Natasha was wiping the graffiti on her face angrily, suddenly, a hand stretched out and drew 2 circles on her pretty face. Quicksilver appeared in front of Link. Banner pointed at Quicksilver and shouted, "That's him. Link, we meet again." Quicksilver accelerated again and rushed over quickly. In his hand, he held a drawing pen in a menacing manner. Quicksilver was so fast that even Link was not even 1/10 as fast as him. It was difficult for Link to catch him based on his skills alone. But Quicksilver was not the only one who was good at using time. Link closed his eyes and quickly sensed a person rushing towards him, as if he wanted to use the drawing pen in his hand to scribble on his face. Then Link's body shook, and he directly shook out bullet time. In his field of vision, time suddenly slowed down. In fact, Link's speed suddenly increased, and it seemed that the surrounding environment wanted to stop. Then he saw Quicksilver rushing towards him. Quicksilver saw Link's body moving and this almost solidified time. He opened his mouth in surprise. Then he saw Link stretched out a finger. Time stopped. Ding. Quicksilver's body stopped. Time returned to normal. Quicksilver's fast running posture stopped in the air. Midona clapped her hands happily. "We caught this guy." Natasha hurriedly said, "We must find a way to control him." Link nodded and directly formed a thick layer of ice on the frozen Quicksilver. Quicksilver was frozen inside. Ting. The golden chain that stopped time flashed a few times and immediately exploded. Quicksilver regained his ability to move. Bullet time and time stop skills are the only 2 skills Link has to restrain Quicksilver. In the Ultron incident, Quicksilver's death was purely accidental. He was at a high altitude and lacked oxygen. And this is really what high-speed athletes need most. Besides, he saved many people and didn't even have time to eat candy to replenish his physical energy. That's why he died, because of saving people. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are 2 siblings. Neither of them is easy to mess with. Chapter 285, The Villain Who Reluctant to Be Lonely. Midona was on Link's shoulder and asked, "Little boy with silver hair, why do you want to pick a fight with the Avengers?" Quicksilver felt uncomfortable being called a little boy by a little girl the size of a baby. Quicksilver stared at Link, but he remained silent. As for Midona's reply, "I'm maintaining the peace of this world." Natasha came over with murderous intent. "This is the first time I know that the Avengers are actually standing on the opposite side of peace." Quicksilver was a little panicked when he saw Natasha coming. He had read Natasha's resume and found that she was a very scary woman. Although she had no superpowers, her fighting and interrogation skills were almost the best in the world. He was worried that Natasha would use some vicious lynching of the KGB on him. Seeing Natasha pull out a dagger, he hurriedly asked, "What are you doing?" Natasha pointed at her face and said, "Have you forgotten when Link and Zelda saved your family? When they first met Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, the brother and sister were still children. Now Quicksilver has grown up a little. Compared to the irritable little boy at that time, the current Quicksilver has a much better temper, but his character seems to be a bit bad." Natasha rubbed the blade with her fingers and said, "Why don't you go home to study and review your lessons, but come here to join a terrorist organization? I need to teach you a lesson, or leave you with some psychological trauma." Quicksilver shouted, "Team Yaga is not a terrorist organization." "What?" Link shouted. "What did you say?" Link took 2 steps forward and glared at Quicksilver. Quicksilver saw that Link's momentum was very scary, and his shoulders shrank. Link said coldly, "Tell me everything about your experience after I saved you." Quicksilver swallowed his saliva. Before, Link's actions had already left a shock in his heart. As soon as Link didn't say any threatening words, he didn't dare to hide it. So he told Link about their experience as brothers and sisters. Quicksilver's family moved to a new city to live, but the shadow of war has not disappeared. Link only eased the temporary conflict in the local area, but the main contradiction has not been eliminated, but is brewing to continue to erupt. Therefore, this small Eastern European country has been shrouded in a suffocating wait for the terrible war to come. Hydra took advantage of the situation and established its own base here, but they are not the only ones who use this place as their base. There is also the Yaga team, which seems to have disappeared from the Earth, and Link can't find it no matter what. Since the Yaga team failed to capture Tony, they disappeared because of exposure. They have been wandering and finally found this base and settled down. Since then, the demand for bananas in this area has increased rapidly. Lord Koge found 2 gains here, namely Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Lord Koge used Ganon's power to immediately realize the power hidden in the brother and sister. So he wanted to recruit them, especially Quicksilver. This guy can teleport. And Lord Koge's ninja subordinates can also teleport. Lord Koge thinks this is a kind of fate. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, because of the shadow of war for many years and the secret propaganda within Hydra, are very cynical in their hearts and believe that the United States and the Avengers are the real culprits who destroy world peace. Even if Link frees them from hatred and fear of Tony. But in the context of local chaos, the basic values and views will not change much. As citizens of a turbulent country, the brother and sister inevitably joined the local Hydra organization like other reckless and impulsive young people. When Lord Koge heard that the 2 children he had chosen were collected by a Hydra, he was embarrassed and ran over with a large number of his men to argue. He planned to let Hydra know who is the real local snake. As a result, Lord Koge and the leader of the local Hydra met, and they actually had the same taste. The 2 evil organizations joined hands because of the relationship between the Avengers and Link. They planned to fight Link together. Hydra coveted Lord Koge's army of ninjas who were simple, fierce and powerful. Lord Koge also took a fancy to the mind gem that Hydra was studying, as well as Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch who had developed their potential. The alliance of the 2 evil organizations was formed just like that. Link was stunned, and Natasha and Banner didn't know what to say for a while. Link said in shock, "There are people from Team Yaga here." And Quicksilver didn't know why, but he admired Lord Koge very much. He said with sparkling eyes, "Lord Koge is the most handsome hero in the world, Link." But he had experienced a lot of strange things. Even Thor believed in the goddess Hylia. Quicksilver worshipped Lord Koge, so that's it. Quicksilver saw Natasha trying to use a knife to gesture on his face twice, and immediately shouted, "Stop. I didn't hurt you. There are no wounds on you that I made. I just want you to give up." But it was true. Since Quicksilver appeared, he has not hurt anyone. At most, he used pranks to paint Natasha's face. Link didn't know what Quicksilver was thinking. He actually worshipped Lord Koge. But from him, Link had received incredible news. He said to Natasha, "Contact Tony quickly and ask him to leave quickly. There may be a large army of ninjas from the Yaga team and the base." Although the Yaga team is a group of stupid ninjas who only know how to eat bananas. But under their ridiculous appearance, they have very strong strength, not to mention anything else. Quicksilver's high-speed movement caused a lot of losses to the Avengers, and the ninjas of the Yaga team can teleport directly. Natasha knew that the matter was not small. She immediately reported it to everyone. In the headset, Tony's puzzled voice came, "Please, there are no ninjas from the Yaga team here. I have got the mind gem scepter." But Natasha heard something strange in Tony's voice. At this time, the Hydra troops without Quicksilver's restraint were also defeated one by one. Rogers reported, "The resistance forces outside have been completely destroyed." No trace of members of the Yege organization has been found so far. Quicksilver asked in confusion. Did they evacuate? It's so cold. He looked at Link pitifully. Link nodded and prepared to break the ice covering Quicksilver. But Natasha hurriedly said, no, he is too fast. If he breaks away from the ice and escapes, we can't stop him at all. Quicksilver said with a trembling mouth, please. I'm almost freezing to death. I won't run away. Chapter 286 Doubt. Link smiled and shook his head. It was nothing. He still smashed the ice that bound Quicksilver with a fist. Quicksilver was delighted and immediately started running at high speed. His body turned into a shadow and disappeared instantly. It's over. Natasha's face suddenly changed, and this face was frozen in the slow time. Quicksilver made a face and looked at Link, but found that Link was very calm. Knowing that the main force had evacuated, Quicksilver didn't want to stay for long. Although for some reasons, he hated the Avengers, but he was kind after all, and had never killed anyone. And because Link had saved his family, Quicksilver didn't want to cause any more trouble to Link, and was about to escape. Suddenly, a pulling force came from his feet, pulling him down. His speed of instant movement and his strength were so terrible that when he fell, his nose hit the soil hard, making a hole. Fortunately, the soil here was soft, and because it had rained, his nose bone was not broken, but he just had a nosebleed. Link pulled Mistin in his hand and pulled Quicksilver over. Quicksilver's speed is indeed a very scary weapon. Even if Link is not careful and makes mistakes in bullet time, he will be hit. But he still figured out some ways to deal with Quicksilver. No matter how fast Quicksilver is, his body is just that of a slightly stronger young man. He will be short of oxygen, exhausted, and restrained. As long as Link is given a chance, there are many ways to deal with him before Quicksilver starts. Midona smiled and said, this rope finally has another use. Quicksilver smiled embarrassedly and looked at Natasha, who was walking over with a grin. So, Team Yage is actually colluding with Hydra. Tony was a little unhappy. He thought he had quickly and neatly eradicated Hydra, but he didn't expect that digging out a route would involve such a thing. Hawkeye was different. He leaned on the sofa and smiled. Team Yage joined Hydra. That will make things easier. We can use bananas to defeat them one by one. At this moment, Loki used Mistidin to lead Quicksilver over. Quicksilver said in a muffled voice, now Lord Kage has found a way to make the ninjas resist the temptation of bananas. Tony looked at Quicksilver and said, are you the bastard who graffitied on Natasha's face? It's strange that she didn't take revenge on you. Natasha wiped her face and came out. Her hair was still wet. She smiled and said, who told me to be tolerant? Quicksilver turned around depressed and saw that the hair on the back of his head had disappeared, and then a few words were written on it. Speeding. Oh, hair again. Tony touched his hair. During the interstellar journey, his second most unbearable memory was his poor hair burned by fangs. It has only just barely recovered, and his eyebrows have just grown completely. Thor looked at Loki and smiled. It seems you have a new job. Quicksilver, right? Do you know that the last person to deal with this Mistidin was? Loki coughed and said, please. Thor raised his eyebrows, intending to give his brother a face, and raised his hand to take a sip of beer. Rogers looked at Quicksilver and said, why did you join Hydra? This is not a meaningful job. Quicksilver didn't say anything, put on his headphones, and listened to music. He was a prisoner and couldn't say anything. At this moment, Hill took the phone and said to Quicksilver, I contacted your parents. Talk to them. Quicksilver opened his mouth and looked bad. He answered the phone dryly. Hill had already turned on the hands-free in advance with malicious intentions. Quicksilver's mother shouted in an Eastern European language from the other side, you actually joined a terrorist organization. Quicksilver also hurriedly replied in an Eastern European language. Natasha smiled and translated the conversation between Quicksilver and his parents. Tony blew a whistle. Well, you secretly joined an evil organization without telling your parents. Young people nowadays really need discipline. Quicksilver hung up the phone with cold sweat. His parents asked him to cut off contact with Hydra and find his sister as soon as possible. Tony said, aren't you going to listen to your parents' earnest advice? Quicksilver was a little unconvinced. Hydra and Lord Kage, they are trying to save the world. Roger said. You were deceived by them, but Natasha suddenly interrupted Quicksilver. I'm curious about how they save the world. She found a flaw, so she actively asked questions. Quicksilver said, then I don't know. Tony yawned. I'll leave this question to you. Banner, come on, let's go and study the Mind Gem Scepter. Do you want to go with Loki? Loki shook his head simply and said, Link won't let me touch the Mind Gem again. Tony smiled and looked at this villain who once threatened the Earth. He was completely dealt with by Link. He and Banner left. Hill was confused. She didn't know why Quicksilver had such a bad opinion of the Avengers, even though they had saved the world many times. Natasha had seen some signs. She lowered her eyes and looked at her phone. Since Hydra was dismantled from within S.H.I.E.L.D., the reputation of the Avengers among the public has dropped rapidly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 287 Project Ultron. Since Link and others dismantled Hydra from S.H.I.E.L.D., the image of the Avengers in the eyes of the public has fallen rapidly. It's okay in the United States. As native people, both Tony and Rogers have their own fan base, and the situation is not bad. But in the eyes of people in other countries, those superheroes who fly over eaves and walls and fight aliens seem very mysterious and unclear. Especially in sensitive countries like Eastern Europe. Not only the Quicksilver family, but the entire region. For the Avengers led by Rogers and Tony, the emotions led by hatred and disgust prevail. The robots that Tony sent to Sokovia to persuade everyone to evacuate in time were attacked by angry people. This was mainly caused by Tony's decision. Tony and Rogers both advocated that the Avengers should not participate in conflicts in other countries, but only be responsible for abnormal situations, resisting foreign invaders, and any evil organizations that would put the Earth in trouble. They don't want to participate in the struggle of the secular world, so as not to cause a bad chain reaction. But these things are not the case in the eyes of the people of a series of conservative and war-torn Eastern European countries. The Avengers are so powerful on Earth that they can even defeat aliens. Why can't they even solve the war of a small country? So conspiracy theories are rampant, giving many people an opportunity to take advantage of it. Natasha has long noticed that the image of the Avengers among the people is constantly declining. This gave her some bad signs. Loki took Quicksilver to sit down and said, if I find that you have any intention of escaping, I will put you in a coffin and tie you up so that you can experience the taste of vampires. Quicksilver looked at Loki. Are you the alien who once invaded the Earth? Then he looked at Rogers with a reproachful look. You Avengers actually took in an enemy who once harmed the Earth? Rogers said, it's not taking in, it's surveillance. If he dares to have any bad intentions, we will definitely take action at the first time. Loki smiled with a bewitching voice and said, don't think too much. I have lost interest in being the king on Earth. At this time, Link was wearing a light green t-shirt with wet hair. He came to Tony's laboratory upstairs. Banner and Tony seemed to be arguing about something. When they remembered the sound of Link's footsteps on the stairs, they immediately stopped talking and looked at Link. Banner opened his mouth and asked, Link, why did you cut your long hair? Link had just finished a shower, and his long fine golden hair, which was damp, draped softly over his shoulders, returning to its original length. Midona, who was standing on Link's shoulder with wet hair, said on behalf of Link. Link felt that keeping his hair too long would make him look like a girl, so he cut it. Tony was puzzled and said, if you cut your hair for this reason, it can only be said to be in vain. Link, you still look like a girl. Link's eyebrows were slightly raised, and his hair began to crackle with sparks. Tony hurriedly said, I'm sorry. I agree with your masculinity. Why do you consider cutting your head bald? That way no one will mistake you for a girl. Link put on an expression of do you think I'm stupid, then walked forward and asked Midona to help him ask, what did that red-haired girl show you? Just like the original Marvel Time and Space, this time Tony was still affected by the Scarlet Witch's illusion. Tony immediately reacted to Link's meaning. So he said, I saw the Earth boom. Exploded. Tony made a very exaggerated gesture. But this made Link frown, and Midona was even more outspoken, saying seriously, Tony is lying. Tony vaguely passed over the matter lightly, and then talked about his Ultron plan. In fact, Tony saw a weird nightmare under the instigation of the Scarlet Witch. Unlike the original Time and Space, the illusion Tony encountered this time was also somewhat different. In the Hydra base, Tony saw a vision of the end of the world. He experienced a tragic defeat and all his companions died. When he possessed Rogers to check on him, Rogers suddenly woke up, stared at him and said, "You can save us." This is a similar place, but the difference is that when Tony found the dying Zelda, he heard Zelda say, "Go save Link." This is the most terrifying illusion in Tony's mind. Link has always turned the tide and saved the world from fire and water. But as Link's closest male friend, Tony knows that Link is just an adventurous and greedy boy, not a god of war. He will also be hurt, feel bad, die, and lose. Because of Link's appearance, every crisis can defeat the enemy before the last moment and save the world at the last second. But what if Link loses? After all, Link is from another world. If Link leaves the Earth and encounters danger again, who will protect him? If Link dies, who can replace Link and continue to carry on? Tony had a lot of doubts about this. Should Tony be the one to protect it? Since Link was too brave, he would always take the lead in everything. Tony could not imagine who would take over the responsibility if Link left the Avengers. Tony was unmoved on the surface and introduced his ideas. Ultron has given me a lot of inspiration. Perhaps we can use him to create a combat system to protect the entire Earth. Even after our group of people retire, Ultron can help us protect the Earth. We will be responsible for the backstage in the future. Otherwise there will always be strange public opinions pestering us. Tony certainly noticed the recent strange public opinion, but as a controversial playboy, Tony naturally would not pay too much attention to those rumors. Because he often showed up in front of disasters and was at the forefront of the storm, it would always cause controversy among the public. Perhaps after this core is built, the Earth will be in permanent peace. Link said nothing. Tony was a little unhappy when he saw that his ideas were not recognized at the first time. The internal structure of the Mind Stone and the computing system of his Friday artificial intelligence butler were radiated. Tony said, "This is Friday, my new partner. This is the internal structure of the Mind Stone. How magnificent and exquisite. It is like a complex composed of a heart and a brain." Banner was also amazed at the internal structure of the Mind Stone. "This is like alive." And Link walked forward. Chapter 288, Yagay Invasion. Tony's mysterious weapon. Tony smiled and said, "Why, Link, are you curious too? I even suspect that this mind gem is actually alive." Link walked forward and tried to touch the core of the mind gem with his hand. As a result, the light blue virtual core actually trembled and shrank. The light of the mind gem scepter was also flickering. This made Tony a little distracted. Banner also opened his mouth slightly. Midona smiled and said, "It seems that this guy is indeed alive." Link didn't expect that the mind gem would be afraid of him and was a little surprised. At the beginning, he just bit the scepter and didn't hurt the mind gem itself. What's going on? At this time, an alarm sounded in the Avengers building. Friday's core was shaking and shrinking. "Boss, there are enemies invading the Avengers building. 121 unknown heat sources have been sensed so far." Tony's pupils shrank. This is probably the ninja army of the Yagay team. These guys who only know how to eat bananas and play hide and seek are here to ask me for banana dry food for the winter. Link heard the alarm and immediately ran to find Zelda and the others. Then Tony saw Banner puffing his cheeks aside, trying to transform into the Hulk. Tony hurriedly stopped him and then said, "Please, this is a war in the city and the main processor of my Iron Legion is here. You are a general, don't make a move first. I have a way to deal with the Yagay team." Tony's face showed a vicious smile, and he laughed strangely. "The idiots of the Yagay team, you wait." Banner looked at Tony's evil face as a villain, and couldn't help asking, "What are you going to do?" Tony smiled sinisterly, "You will know when the time comes." Since Tony was caught by the ninjas of the Yagay team, he has been thinking of ways to retaliate. He also developed many weapons based on the weaknesses of the Yagay team ninjas. Now they are hiding in the storage room and gathering dust. Finally, they are useful. Rogers and others who were downstairs also stood up immediately. Quicksilver shouted happily, "It must be Lord Kage who came to save me. Ouch, why are you pulling me?" Loki dragged Quicksilver directly into a house, pushed him in, and poked his head out from the crack of the door, saying with a smile, "Everyone, the fight is up to you. When you are done, remember to call me." Rogers stood up, took the shield, and said in a deep voice, "The enemy is invading. Prepare for battle." At this time, Link hurried downstairs. Midona held her two small hands to her mouth and shouted, "Everyone, be careful. The Koge team will change into other people's appearance to deceive people, and they can also teleport. If you find Link who likes to eat bananas later, remember to kill him." Link ran downstairs to find Zelda. Thor said, "Let's find a way to distinguish between friend and foe." Natasha smiled and pointed to her miniature earphones. "Have you forgotten this thing I put on your ears? Use it to distinguish between friend and foe. If the real person is talking to you, the same voice will come out of the earphones." Thor suddenly realized how magical. "So that's it. I thought it was a human ornament. Goddess Hylia." Link rushed downstairs in one breath and saw Zelda, who was disheveled, rushing over, covered in blood, shouting, "Link, save me." Zelda threw herself into Link's arms, trembling all over and said, "Someone behind is trying to kill me. You protect me." Midona held her face and said, "If you are Zelda, then who is behind you?" At the other end of the corridor, the Washan princess blasted open the door with a sword, injured a ninja from the Yage team and rushed out, followed by the Sky Princess and Zelda. Finally, a small flying bird modified by Tony attacked from behind with a laser. Zelda was embarrassed at once, trying to cover up her mistake. He grinned and said, "You have uncovered not only the disguise, but also the curtain of death." Thick smoke exploded in Link's arms, and then he turned into a slender Yage ninja, took out the scimitar at his waist, and stabbed Link in the waist. Link looked at him coldly, and his figure suddenly lit up, bursting out a strong electric light. Zzzz. The Yage ninja's body spasmed, and finally fell to the ground with a charred body, twitching, and it was estimated that he would die soon. Link stepped over the corpse. Suddenly, 3 tall and strong Yage warriors jumped out of the door of Zelda and others' house, holding big swords in their hands, running out with red eyes and shouting, "For bananas." But Lord Gay knew that Link would use bananas against them. So during the period of hiding, he had been ordering his subordinates to reduce the use of bananas, to get rid of the addiction to bananas. As a result, his companions were forced to become somewhat insane, exchanging bananas all day long. Crazy. Princess Washan calmly pulled Princess Sky over, then sent a sword stab with her shoulder, rushed forward, and the bright yellow light of the rapier was emitting uncertain luster. Link rushed over quickly. His t-shirt was scratched, and his hair was blown straight. But at this time, 5 vicious Yage soldiers jumped out of the corridor behind him like fleas, holding big swords, and rushed towards Link with a roar. Link could only temporarily not help Princess Washan, and turned to face the 5 vicious Yage soldiers, and casually sprinkled a layer of cold air at the feet of the 3 Yage soldiers who were attacking Princess Washan behind him. Pa. 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 The 3 Yage soldiers rushed over quickly, with heavy bodies and full of momentum. But suddenly their feet became slippery and they fell down. Princess Washan naturally would not miss such a good opportunity. 3 sword energies were instantly created and rushed towards the weaknesses of the 3 fallen Yage ninjas. And Link's side. He turned around and took out the dragon scale sword, twisted his feet, and immediately swung out a strong flame, and the air around him suddenly became hot. The 5 Yage soldiers were also well coordinated. Seeing Link's fierce attack, 2 Yage soldiers immediately greeted him, while the other 3 paused, retreated, and then scattered a row of poisonous darts to stab Link. Link held the dragon scale sword in his right hand, and when the darts stabbed at him, the master sword immediately appeared in his left hand, and the bright blade swept out from bottom to top. His light blue eyes stared into the void, and the master sword seemed to be slashing in the air, but it seemed that water could not penetrate it, and it clanged dozens of times. The dense spinning darts that came at him were all blocked by Link's master sword, and fell to the ground like rain. Link looked at the large number of Yage ninjas behind him rushing over again. So he decided to make a quick decision. The magnetic grabber moved, and a dart on the ground floated in the air. He thrust it fiercely and immediately pierced into the mouth of a Yagay soldier. A strange green smoke came out of the soldier's mouth. Chapter 289, Fierce Battle. Then Link activated the poison dart and continued to stab the second person. But the 4 Yagay ninjas reacted very quickly, teleported over, jumped high, raised their shining swords and chopped down, carrying a creepy aura, and even the masks on their faces became a little hideous and dark. This group of funny Yagay ninjas changed their personalities once they started fighting, becoming efficient and cold killers. The 4 of them teleported together, and the 4 weapons chopped down from different angles, supporting each other. It was difficult for Link to resist. Midona was about to use the power of the reality stone when she saw that Link's face did not show fear. Instead, he took a step back and summoned the Hylia shield. Link's eyes were focused, looking at a point in the void. Want to use a shield counter? But the shield counter can only resist the next attack in a short period of time, and it will be open to others. The Yagay team's move happened to be a multi-person encirclement attack method designed to restrain Link's shield counter. If Link parries the attack with his shield, his body will be in a short period of open space, which is just convenient for others to attack. The mask on the face of the Yagay warrior looked more and more ferocious. He took a deep breath and swung his shield back, and the shield collided with a weapon. At this time, Link twisted his wrist slightly, and the rebound force immediately became distorted. The warrior who was parried by the shield turned his body diagonally and hit another person. The man groaned with a rapid contraction of his abdomen and crashed directly into the ceiling, temporarily hanging on it. With his other hand, Link took out a goblin stick that was knocked down on the Thunder Planet from Midona's rough iron crown. Although it was a primitive weapon, the stick was supported by a kind of wood in Hyrule, and the texture was very hard, which was convenient for Link to swing. Link casually threw out, spinning and attacking the remaining warrior's head, hitting him hard in the face. The man's body paused heavily, and the goblin stick exploded in his face, causing secondary damage. The scattered wooden stick fragments instantly killed the warrior. Link's throwing weapon attack is twice the damage of a normal attack, and the head attack is also twice the damage of a normal attack. The 2 attack bonuses are superimposed together, and the damage caused is terrible. When Natasha knew that Link could switch weapons at will, she anticipated the diversity of Link's attacks. In this battle in a confined space, Link's combat potential will be fully utilized. Link swung the dragon scale sword with his backhand, and the flames of the sword spewed out, cutting the last warrior in the waist fiercely, burning him to ashes on the spot. The Hylian shield and dragon scale sword in his hand disappeared at the same time. Then came a black longbow given by Hawkeye, turning his toes, as sidetracked the 2 Yaij team warriors who were fighting with the Washang princess. Princess Washang's sword moves were extremely sharp. She was weaker than Link in pure strength, physique, and the diversity of her attacks. Her other fighting qualities were on par with Link's. As soon as she fought with the 3 Yagay soldiers, she immediately jumped up and attacked wildly with her sword. Before the situation could get entangled, she killed one of them and wounded the arm of another soldier with a turn of the sword. Through the initial risky action, she secured an advantage for herself. Link didn't like others to steal his head, but he was quite keen on stealing other people's heads, not to mention that the one he was fighting was Princess Washang. Link was even more impolite. He took out 2 ice arrows, aimed at the back of the 2 soldiers' heads, and shot them silently. The ice arrows shot by Link were so powerful, even materials made of ice could not bear such a large force. So Link had to use another force to stabilize the ice arrows. In this way, the sound of the ice arrows breaking through the air seemed much louder. It was easy to alert the 2 Yagay soldiers. Princess Washang also noticed it. In order to facilitate Link's cold arrows, he rushed forward and attacked fiercely. His fierce moves made the 2 warriors unable to pay attention. Bang, bang, Link's 2 swords hit both. The 2 Yagay soldiers froze and exploded into a ball of ash, dropping a bunch of bananas and a few rupees. Princess Washang tidied her messy hair and smiled at Link. Link asked the 3 princesses to follow him. The scene was very chaotic. Even Midona turned into an adult, playing with the reality gem in her hand and waiting for an opportunity to attack. Fangirl lay on Link's shoulder, holding 2 purple rupees in her hands and playing with them. She seemed to like it very much. Midona smiled and said, so you are also a little money grubber. Fangire looked up at Midona blankly and saw her looking at the rupee in her claws and quickly shrank into her arms. Midona had a bad habit of snatching things from Fangire, which made Fangire very manic. Link walked in front, and the Master Sword and Dragon Scale Great Sword were never used again. Link always had a bow in his hand. Whenever he saw an enemy, he would shoot a sharp arrow with lightning. When it hit the enemy would be numb and die. Link has been honing his archery skills for many years. Hawkeye would come to train with him whenever he had time. Although Link had won over Hawkeye in 2 archery competitions, there were still many things about Hawkeye that Link could think about and learn from. This made Link's archery skills progress rapidly. In just a few minutes, Link killed nearly 30 Yagay ninjas. Basically, as soon as they showed their heads, they were shot in the head by Link's swift archery. Now Link had to protect the 3 princesses, so he didn't have time to fight the Yagay ninjas one by one. Zelda suddenly said, Link, the enemy doesn't seem to care much about attacking us. Could it be that their purpose is something else? Link nodded. His guess was the Mind Gem Scepter. So he took the 3 princesses upstairs. Upstairs, the battle was almost over. The fighting power of the Avengers is not so easy to deal with. Even the powerful and elusive Yagay team is the same. Natasha knocked down one with a scissor kick and then stabbed him in the vitals with a dagger. Then she pushed him away. This was the 4th Yagay team she killed. The scene was already a mess. Thor wanted to release lightning, but Rogers hurriedly stopped him. Don't collapse the building. Thor nodded. Okay, after all, we still need to hold the party here. Then he looked at Rogers and they nodded together. One person threw a hammer and the other threw a shield. The 2 weapons flew out at the same time and knocked down a group of ninjas. At this time, an extremely annoyed voice sounded, my good apprentice, where are you? Where did these bastards hide you? Lord Kage, who was wearing black and red clothes and had a pot belly, showed his body in a red spell. Chapter 290, Poisonous Banana. There was a huge fight outside. Quicksilver sat in the bedroom with Loki, watching TV. Quicksilver heard the occasional shouts of the Yagay ninjas outside the door. Hearing his companions being injured made Quicksilver very sad. But Link had tied a very strong knot on his wrist. It was the knotting method used by Hyrule to tie up death row prisoners. It was very complicated and getting tighter and tighter. Quicksilver tried to untie Mistidin in his hand during several high-speed actions, but it only made him pull tighter and tighter. After trying to no avail, he had to watch TV with Loki. Loki was watching an emotional program seriously. It was about a family conflict. There was a big gap between the father and son due to the influence of concepts. In the variety show hall, the father and son met and almost fought. The atmosphere was very serious, but in the end, with the support of self-righteous matchmaking and the touching background music, the father and son hugged each other affectionately. Loki was about to cry, his chin trembling and his eyes red. Quicksilver, who was sitting obediently next to him, was very embarrassed. Quicksilver said, "You're crying." Loki sniffed and said to Quicksilver with red eyes, "Because this is very touching." Quicksilver nodded, "Yes, my mother thinks so too." Loki poured himself a glass of red wine and said to Quicksilver with an experienced look, "You really should see more. You can appreciate some useful values in life." Quicksilver smiled awkwardly, "Forget it." At this time, outside the door, there was a shout from Lord Koge. Lord Koge shouted, "Quicksilver, where are you? Master is looking for you." Quicksilver's face suddenly became excited. He hurriedly stood up and shouted, "Lord Koge, I'm here." Loki hurriedly stepped forward to cover Quicksilver's mouth and pushed him to the ground. Lord Koge heard the voice and immediately looked at the room where Loki was hiding. At this time, an arrow flew over and shot at Koge's face. Hawkeye loosened his fingers and shot out a sharp cold arrow. But Lord Kage did not dodge or evade and seemed full of confidence, which made Hawkeye a little confused. He thought that Lord Kage might have some secret tricks and was not afraid of his archery. As a result, Hawkeye's arrow pierced Lord Kage's forehead with a hiss, and the tail of the arrow trembled. "Hawkeye, everyone." Lord Kage didn't care and rushed forward to break the door open with an arrow on his forehead. At this time, Thor and Rogers blocked the door, one holding a shield and the other holding a hammer, and said at the same time, "Why don't you communicate with us first?" Lord Kage said angrily. Let go of Quicksilver. Lord Kage summoned a large stone directly from his head and smashed it towards the door behind the two. Thor hit it with a hammer, and Rogers rolled over and poked Lord Kage's leg with a shield. As a result, Lord Kage slapped Rogers away. The huge stone he threw over also withstood Thor's hammer, pressed Thor, and knocked the door open. Hawkeye shot another arrow, but Lord Kage still acted as if he didn't see it. The arrow stuck right in the back of his head, trembling. But Lord Kage was like a brainless man. With 2 arrows on his head, he didn't react at all. He rushed into the bedroom to find Quicksilver regardless of anything. Hawkeye was so angry that he threw the bow and arrow on the ground and cursed. Where did this unreasonable enemy come from? Lord Kage rushed into the room with 2 arrows on his head. He saw a variety show he liked to watch on the TV, and a man with greasy hair on the ground was hugging a shy little blonde beauty. The blonde stared at Lord Kage nervously, and her mouth was covered by Loki, making a whining sound. She was the Quicksilver transformed by Loki. Lord Kage shouted, "Where is Quicksilver?" Loki pointed to the left with his chin. "Next door." Lord Kage was stunned and said, "Sorry, I'm disturbing you. You guys continue." Then he slammed the door shut. Loki was scared and broke into a cold sweat. The pressure displayed by Lord Kage was very strong, even not inferior to the Thanos that Loki had seen. Loki changed Quicksilver back to his original appearance, glared at him fiercely and said, "Be quiet." At this time, the door was opened again. It was Rogers who was thrown by Lord Kage and broke the door. He just saw Quicksilver who was changed back by Loki. Lord Kage glared at Loki. "You lied to me. You can actually transform. Who are you?" "Only the people of the Yage team can transform." Quicksilver bit Loki's hand, opened his mouth and shouted, "Lord Kage, save me." Lord Kage rushed over with a roar, but Thor, who rushed over, hit Lord Kage's ankle with a hammer, causing him to fall to the ground. He and Lord Kage wrestled on the ground. Suddenly, many red spells exploded around, and more ninjas showed their bodies and rushed over shouting. Natasha gathered her hair and said in a low voice, "It seems that Stark's house must be demolished. By the way, Stark." Hawkeye shouted, "Where is Tony?" "I'm here." At this time, Tony ran down from upstairs. He held a lot of bananas in his arms. Then he threw them down from the stairs fiercely, almost throwing them all over. The ninja's eyes twitched, but they shouted firmly, "Don't think about it. We have gotten rid of the temptation of bananas." Tony smiled sinisterly, "That's bad. This is the special banana I planted. It is the sweetest banana in the world, and can be called the king of bananas. Didn't you notice this exaggerated aroma?" Natasha whispered to Rogers, "This banana is probably the strange weapon Tony developed to deal with the Yage team ninjas." Upon hearing Tony's instigation, the ninjas immediately smelled an irresistible banana smell, and the aroma released from the bananas on the ground immediately made their eyes straight, and they rushed up to grab the bananas to eat, and the scene was in chaos. Helped Rogers and others out of the siege. Tony's evil plan succeeded, and he smiled, thinking in his heart, "You greedy guys. I put poison in these super fragrant bananas that I ripened. You wait for death." Tony asked Pepper and Banner to move a large number of poisonous fragrant bananas and scatter them. He planned to watch this group of ninjas self-destruct, and the first batch of people who ate the bananas immediately turned green and trembled. Tony immediately knew that the drug worked, but the ninja with a green face suddenly gave Tony a green thumbs up. "Delicious. Enough. Tony." Pepper, Banner touched his chin and asked Tony, "Are you sure that the Hellions represented by Link are afraid of your so-called poison?" "Shame on you." Tony spread his hands, and the Iron Man suit was attached to his body. "It's still more reliable to fight." Chapter 291 Scarlet Witch's Illusion. The ninjas ate bananas, but instead of dying, they became even more excited and crazier. As if possessed by evil spirits, they squirmed their bodies, became excited, and yelled. Tony curled his lips. It seems that the neurotoxins in the bananas did not kill them, but made them more energetic. But the bananas were not completely useless. At least these ninjas temporarily lost their will to fight, because they were too excited. The armor covered his body. On Tony's visor, a light red mark appeared on the display panel, directly locking most of the ninjas on the scene. Then the armor suddenly unfolded like a beetle shell, releasing a large number of small shells to attack. This was an indoor space, releasing a large number of macro shells to detonate, releasing all kinds of shockwaves at once, and almost blow up this floor of the building. Rogers hurriedly pulled Natasha and Hawkeye behind him, and then blocked them with the vibranium shield. The vibranium shield absorbed a large amount of shockwaves. At this moment, the scene was already full of smoke and dust, and it was extremely chaotic. Passersby walking on the street suddenly saw the top floor of the Stark building in the city center suddenly covered by orange-yellow light, and then a lot of smoke, and broken glass exploded, and the strong vibration even caused the building to shake violently twice. Ah, so cool. The smoke and dust dissipated, and Tony's group attack with all his strength was only able to kill a small number of ninjas, while the others were still very manic, and the explosion aroused their excitement. Hawkeye looked over and looked up at Tony, who was a little stunned. Did you give them drugs? Tony put his hands on his hips. I don't know about that. Rogers waved his shield and looked at Thor, who was fighting with Lord Koge. Looking at the gang, some of them came back to their senses and then ran desperately towards Lord Koge, intending to help. Rogers shouted, "Fight." Tony hurriedly called Banner. Wait a moment. Don't transform. Wait until we can't beat it. Rogers, Natasha, and Hawkeye hurriedly blocked the large number of ninjas. Tony also flew in from high altitude. Looking at this group of ninjas who were so excited that they seemed to have been injected with 10 kilograms of adrenaline. Natasha smiled bitterly. Tony, I feel that your poison banana has made them stronger. The four of them rushed together with the group of ninjas. Natasha and Rogers rushed forward with angry eyes, while Hawkeye took a step back and raised his hand to shoot 3 arrows at a rapid speed. Tony also gave up large-scale killing and focused on energy to carry out more effective single-point attacks. The ninjas of the Yagay team are elusive, can teleport, and can transform, and are proficient in powerful short weapon skills. Moreover, this is a well-trained team, and the tacit understanding of mutual cooperation is far better than the level of Tony, Rogers and others fighting alone. This put a lot of pressure on the four. Banner, who was standing upstairs, grabbed the railing and shouted, "Will you let me go on stage?" Rogers and Tony hurriedly shouted, "Wait a minute." Although they were outnumbered in the house, it was very difficult. But Banner's sudden transformation might be a bad thing. Just now, after Tony's explosion, there was some problem with the load-bearing beam. If Hulk went crazy and fought, he might destroy the building. Natasha and others have witnessed how Hulk ravaged the shield building. Thor and Lord Koge were fighting happily, and he hurriedly said to the four people, "Hold on. Wait until I get rid of this fat man, and then I will go to help you." Lord Koge got angry for a while, and the mask on his face wrinkled up, and roared, "Who are you saying is fat? My men say that my figure is perfect." "Perfect?" Thor sneered. "My figure is a standard of perfection. You are a useless fat man. Look at the hammer." Lord Koge was furious. "You dare to humiliate me? I will humiliate you too." A primitive man with a beard and hair all over his face. Thor roared, "Primitive? When my father was young, the earth was not civilized yet." Loki pulled Quicksilver away in a hurry. At this time, Link knocked down a ninja and came up with the 3 princesses. Midona sat on Link's shoulder and looked at the chaotic scene upstairs. Her mouth opened wide. "Wow. What are they doing?" Princess Washang said, "I will protect the Zeldas. You can go up without worry." Link nodded and rushed up with his sword. The appearance of Princess Washang liberated Link to a great extent and relieved him of some of his responsibility of protection. Zelda was flying in the air, alert to the surroundings. When Banner saw Link appear, he immediately raised his fist and shouted, "Leave it to you, Link." Link's body was torn apart, and a clone appeared on each side. At the same time, he drew his sword and sprinted away. Link tried his best to keep the distance between the other 2 clones. He knew very well that the energy of the 3 forms was exactly the same. Once they came into contact, it would cause energy collapse, leading to uncontrollable situations. Some ninjas who saw Link coming up shouted and rushed up. Without saying a word, Link rushed forward with a sword, cut off the weapon head on, and then killed it with a sword. 3 Links rushed into the group of ninjas. These ninjas who had eaten bananas and were very excited had poor vigilance. When Link sneaked over, he didn't notice it. Then 3 links stabbed him in the back at the same time and fell to the ground. Link's wrist was a little painful. These ninjas seemed to have become much stronger and their strength was greater than before. He didn't know that it was the result of Tony's poisonous banana. Then the surrounding ninjas also noticed Link's appearance. Just as they were about to fight back, they saw the weapon in Link's hand disappear and turned into a black longbow with 3 arrows. Cluster. 9 ninjas fell to the ground with their foreheads covered. As soon as Link appeared, the situation immediately became clear. Hawkeye's shoulders shook, not to be outdone, and the arrows stabbed out, as if they were free. With the help of the 2 clones, Link's attack efficiency increased by 2 times. Just when Link was about to release the electric shock and directly deal with all the invading ninjas in one go. Link, there is someone behind you. Sky Princess shouted. Link was stunned, and a strange red girl appeared behind him. With 10 fingers waving, a ball of red energy interfered with Link's brain. It made him fall into an illusion. As soon as Sky Princess finished shouting, she suddenly reacted, and the other 2 princesses fell into a strange stagnation. At this time, the red-haired girl looked over, with a bewitching breath in her eyes. The vision of Sky Princess was suddenly filled with a strange red background. Loki, who originally planned to take Quicksilver away, saw what the red-haired girl did, and felt something was wrong. He directly tied Quicksilver up like a silkworm with mist in, throw him into another room, and then quietly hide his figure. Chapter 292 Breaking Free from the Illusion. Others were also hit. Rogers and Natasha were dizzy, and then Scarlet Witch rushed to Hawkeye like a ghost. Just as she was about to perform her magic, Hawkeye shot an arrow back. He said coldly, I have been controlled once, and it will never happen again. Scarlet Witch was stunned, and a scar was scratched on her cheek by the arrow. Hawkeye attacked quickly, so she waved her hands hurriedly. Hawkeye suddenly thought of Link. Link was also bewitched by the Mind Scepter. Why did he faint as well? Scarlet Witch's eyes were cold. Just increase the trick. Pepper saw that things were not going well. A little girl fainted almost all the Avengers. He ran to put on a small Iron Man armor. Banner was worried that, if he rushed in, he would also be bewitched by the Scarlet Witch and cause a big mess, which would be bad. You know, this is on the top floor of the Avengers building, and several teammates can easily be implicated by him. Moreover, Banner had more important things to do, so he hurried back upstairs. He picked up the Mind Gem Scepter. Then, seeing Pepper hurriedly putting on his armor, he immediately said, let's protect the Mind Gem first. Pepper flatly refused. I'm going to save them. Then he rushed back quickly, shouting, you bad guys. I'm going to defeat you. Bang. Pepper was held in Lord Kage's hand, and with his other hand, he threw the unconscious Thor aside. He grabbed Pepper, whose limbs were dangling, and threw him out of the window. Wow. Pepper disappeared into the night sky. The ninja rescued the tied up Quicksilver. Lord Kage laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha. Wanda. Quicksilver. You are really my good helpers. Link and Zelda. I finally caught them. Lord Kage pointed at the 3 unconscious Zeldas and shouted, catch Zelda. I want to sacrifice her to Lord Ganon. Quicksilver was speechless. Sacrifice? What are you going to do? Lord Kage coughed. I'm kidding. I want to catch her and interrogate her, and use morality to make her turn from evil to good. Lord Kage liked Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver very much, knowing that the 2 children were very kind, and so far, they had not even killed anyone. Compared to Link, who seemed innocent, but had killed countless strong men, this pair of siblings were like angels. He did not tell Lord Ganon the real purpose, because he was afraid that the siblings would back down. Then Lord Kage came to Link in a rage. At this moment, Fangi and Midona fell at Link's feet, and fell into a nightmare. Link was also troubled by the Scarlet Witch's dream. In the illusion, Link saw the corpses of the 3 Zeldas, staring at the sky with their dead eyes wide open. Link was shocked for a moment. He knew it was a dream, but the horror and sadness gradually infected his heart. He rushed over and hugged the 3 princesses in a hurry. But everything he touched was cold and hard, as if he was holding a stone that could never be warmed up. Zelda's lips suddenly curved stiffly into a weird smile, like a puppet. Zelda's mechanical voice came from her throat. I died 100 years ago. You didn't save me. Boom. Link's heart was hit hard, and his heart trembled uncontrollably, like a crazy out of control engine that was about to collapse the entire room. In despair, Link hurriedly gathered his spirit. He knew that this was a dream, and what disturbed him was actually the fear in his heart. He had to recover from this meaningless and addictive despair. There were a lot of vicious enemies outside. Now Zelda, Tony and others were also in trouble. He had to recover and save them. This was what he had to do. Just as Lord Kage took the ninja's knife beside him and stabbed it into Link's chest fiercely, Link's eyes released a strong light, and his whole body was covered by a golden light. With a loud shout, Lord Kage was forced to retreat. The certificate of the brave, in Link's heart, shone brightly, like a crystal reflecting dazzling sunlight under the sun. At the most desperate moment, a strong light surged in Link's illusion. It was like the world was shattered, and the illusion that trapped Link in place was completely defeated. Link escaped from endless despair. Link glared at Lord Kage and swung his sword. The bright sword energy sprayed out like a rainbow. Lord Kage responded hastily, but was still forced to retreat 3 steps. Just as he was about to attack, Banner, who had already hidden the Mind Gem Scepter, jumped down from a high altitude, transformed into the Hulk, roared and rushed towards Lord Kage, and pressed him to the ground. Just as Hulk was about to punch Lord Kage, he was hit hard in the abdomen, and was knocked away by Lord Kage's punch. Damn it. Link always messes with me at the critical moment. Lord Kage was about to stand up and attack Link, but Link rushed over first. A beam of light, the sword energy pierced Lord Kage like the wind from the sun, and forced Lord Kage back again. Link was shrouded in a white light, and his expression was angry, like a god descending from the sky. Just as he was about to pursue the victory, Lord Kage rubbed his shoulders and suddenly said, "I won't fight with you anymore. Goodbye." It exploded into a red spell, and disappeared on the spot. Link missed it. Link turned around and saw other ninjas grabbing the 3 unconscious princesses. He jumped and disappeared in the exploding red spell. No! Link screamed and rushed over, but missed again. Hulk knocked the ninja who killed Rogers and others away and saved him. But Link punched the ground hard, unable to restrain his anger. Hulk was very afraid of Link's appearance, and suddenly turned back into Banner. Banner came forward breathlessly and asked, "Where is Zelda?" Link whispered, "She was taken away by the Yage team. I'm going to save them." He had never experienced such a thing since he came to the Marvel world. Quicksilver was taken away, and the Avengers were almost wiped out. Zelda was kidnapped. Link had never experienced such an unbearable thing. The anger and regret for failure made Link's heart burn. When Link was about to fly up to the sky, he couldn't delay for a moment, otherwise the consequences would be serious. He picked up Midona and Fangire and quickly flew up to the sky. He desperately chased after the breath of Lord Kage. When Link was furiously chasing, he didn't see that in the corridor downstairs, Zelda, Sky Princess, and Washan Princess were unconscious with bitter faces, and they were not taken away. The 3 Zeldas abducted by the Yage team were actually a man who could perform illusions. Chapter 293 Suspect Loki's Devotion. The ninjas of the Yage team have strong concealment skills. Once they escape, Link can only grasp a little bit of fluctuations, just like the faint sound of a dolphin calling in the sea. Link flew rapidly in the air, but the breath he could sense became increasingly weak, and could be cut off at any time. He almost condensed his attention into substance, wanting to grasp the clues before the breath was completely cut off. But in the end, the clues were broken, leaving only intermittent traces. Squeak. The fingertips were placed on the temples, and the slightest touch would make a little phone call. The stinging and alertness activated Link's brain at once, making him more excited in order to strengthen the scope of the pursuit of clues. But at this time, a train whizzed by under his feet and made a noise. This noise would not interfere with Link at all in the past, but in this slight grasp, it played a serious destructive role, and the only fluctuation clues Link sensed were cut off. Ah! Link shouted angrily, fell to the ground, and punched. Although it hit the air, it still sent out a wave of air. In the distance, an ancient tree cracked with a pop sound, and the bark of the tree cracked, scattering powder. After the dust settled, a hole the size of Link's wrist appeared on the trunk. Link was furious, and only then did he realize the reward for breaking through the illusion just now. 3 certificates of bravery. Similarly, the voice of the goddess Hylia never sounded again. These 3 certificates of bravery were the energy that Link inspired from his heart to break through the predicament. The certificates of bravery constructed by the sacred triangle exist all over the world, invisible and intangible. But Link needs to defeat the current predicament before it can be activated by the power of the sacred triangle in Link's body and be born to show its substance. However, these 3 certificates of bravery did not make Link's mood improve even a little. He was still so angry that his hands were shaking. This chaotic atmosphere even woke up Midona, who was sleeping. Midona dreamed that her own kingdom of shadows was destroyed and swallowed by an energy that was even darker than the dark world, and she was trapped in an endless emptiness, unable to extricate herself. When she opened her eyes in a trance, she saw Link's profile, covered with a rage that she had never seen before. It even made Midona feel a little scared. "Link, are you sick? You look so bad." Link came back to his senses and looked at Midona. His expression became a little softer, but still very stiff. Link told Midona that the 3 princesses were kidnapped by the ninjas of the Yage team. Midona opened her mouth slightly. "Wow. All 3 were caught. Didn't you stop one?" This sentence was obviously unintentional, but it still hurt Link. Link's face became even gloomier, as if his facial skin was absorbing light. Midona knew that she had some problems with her speech, so she apologized quickly. "I'm sorry. Don't worry, we just need to rescue them quickly. Hurry up. Run. Don't get sleepy at this time." Link nodded. If the Yage team captured Zelda, who knows what they would do? Whatever the Yage team planned to do with Zelda, it would take time. Link must take advantage of this gap to rescue her as soon as possible. But now, all the clues Link had been trying to find were broken, and he had to think of a new way to track down the Yage team and Zelda. So he thought of Tony. Tony Stark not only has a powerful global weapon system, but also has the Veronica device in outer space. As to whether it is anti-Link or anti-Hulk, it is unknown. Oh, Zelda's cell phone. Link regained his composure. The cell phone Zelda carried was a cutting-edge technology product developed by Tony and him in a quarrel. It has extremely high performance and can handle heavy data. It can even fit a Jarvis. It also has the world's most sophisticated positioning device. In fact, the main purpose of the mobile phone is to facilitate contact with Banner. To prevent the situation where Link and Tony beat up the New York Giant while Banner was on vacation in Miami from happening again. Link hurriedly turned on his phone to check Zelda's current location. As a result, after searching, he saw the location of Zelda's phone, as well as the location of Princess Washang and Princess Sky, all of which were shown as being located in Stark Tower. Link saw the 3 princesses being kidnapped with his own eyes, and his first reaction was naturally, "It's over." Zelda and the others left their phones in the Avengers Tower. He didn't have time to sigh. He saw Banner calling. Link hurriedly answered the call. Then I heard Banner slowly saying, "Link, Zelda." Midona was also very anxious, and she replied impatiently on behalf of Link, I know. Link and I are chasing the Yage team. Don't delay us. I'm hanging up." Banner hurriedly said, "Wait. Zelda and the others haven't been captured. They are in the Avengers building." Midona, huh? Then she looked up at Link, who was stunned. "Did you hit your head? Did you mistake a banana or something for Zelda?" Link shook his head. It was impossible for him to mistake Zelda's appearance. There might be some misunderstanding, so he decided to go back to the Avengers building to check. Midona stretched out her little hand, clenched it into a fist, and planned to knock Link's head to wake him up. Suddenly, the wings of light behind Link exploded like a parachute ejection. Then they quickly flew into the sky and flew towards the center of New York City. Wow. Slow down. Link was very fast, like a shadow. The drunk people on the streets of New York inexplicably heard a faint scream from the sky and looked up in confusion. Link quickly rushed back to the Avengers building. He was out of breath, and Midona in his arms had circles in her eyes and was shaking her head. Then he saw the Avengers looking at Link with bad faces. Then the 3 princesses sat on the sofa tiredly drinking hot drinks. Seeing Link coming back like a cannonball, the 3 princesses stood up and ran over. Link was panting tiredly. "You weren't captured?" Zelda shook her head. Thor walked over with a glass of cold beer in his hand and said, "It was actually Loki who was captured." He transformed into Zelda's appearance and was taken away in Zelda's place. He knew he couldn't beat Koji, so he had to replace 3 Zelds with himself. Tony looked at the devastated scene around him and said with a complicated expression, although Loki still looks cunning and slick, he seems to have really changed from the villain who wanted to rule the world to a better person. If it was Zelda who was captured, who knows what would have happened? Should we change our view of Loki? We don't have to be on guard against him like a criminal anymore. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 294. Peeper never gives up. Even Link was surprised. He should be the one with the worst relationship with Loki among the Avengers. Link often beat Loki violently. Unexpectedly, Loki would save the 3 Zeldas at such a critical moment and use himself to deceive Lord Koge. This made Link feel very different. Roger said in a deep voice, "We owe Loki a favor." Everyone in the Avengers knew about Link and Zelda. Once Zelda was caught by Lord Koge, Ganon's puppet, something terrible would happen. Tony grabbed the sofa and shook it hard twice to dump the glass shards on it, then sat on the sofa tiredly, looked up and asked everyone, "I really want to know, what did you dream about?" But no one answered. Everyone knows that what happens in the illusion is actually the softest part of your heart, which cannot be touched by others. Although the relationship between the Avengers is very good, but it is difficult to completely expose your inner heart. This is a very difficult thing for people with strong hearts. The Avengers were all determined people, so it was even more difficult for them to do this. Zelda spoke, her voice still a little hoarse, as if she had been crying for a long time. Everyone was like this, exhausted by the illusion of the Nilaiwat witch. "I dreamed that Link died in front of me." The other 2 princesses also nodded and said, "We were the same." Tony sighed and said, "What a good relationship, but it's not surprising at all." Natasha crossed her arms and looked at Tony and said, "Then tell me about yours." Tony made up 2 unconvincing lies. "I dreamed that I was tied up in a sealed house. There was no ventilation around. It was very dead and very scary." Tony's serious and leisurely tone made everyone look sideways. Tony smiled in his heart and continued, "Of course I'm not that scared. The fear is still behind." "Do you know who I saw?" Banner asked. "Who did you see?" Tony said in a low voice, looking at Link, "I saw Link." The 3 Zeldas looked at each other. Zelda asked hurriedly, "Did Link hurt you?" Tony nodded. Link didn't do anything, but he felt very guilty. Tony said in a sad tone, "Yes, Link hurt me." "Why did you do that?" Tony stood up suddenly and glared at Link, his expression like a demon. Midona looked at Tony's face and felt a little scary. She was busy poking Link's face and said, "Should I apologize to Tony verbally for you?" Tony turned his head and looked at everyone at this time. His face was very sad. "Do you know what Link did to me?" Hawkeye smiled and said, "Tear your Iron Man suit in half." Natasha smiled and said, "Tear your body in half." Tony clapped his hands. "Link." Everyone waited for Tony's introduction. Tony suddenly spoke faster. "I dreamed that Link cooked durian in front of me. I was suffocated to death in the secret room." Everyone. Midona said for Link, "Let's not talk about it for now. Let's go find Loki as soon as possible. Otherwise Loki will probably be made into a roast chicken by the vicious Yage team." Tony shook his head. "You go first. Remember to wear communication tools." I injected a macro locator and a life detection device under Loki's skin. But the Yage team created some magic barriers to interfere with the internal devices. Friday must spend some time to find the correct location. Link nodded, and Midona said, "Then we can only wait now?" Zelda smiled and said, "We still have an important task." Link was puzzled. The Sky Princess smiled and said, "Pepper is missing. Let's find a way to get him back." Link sighed. The Zelda captured by the Yage team has now arrived in a small town in the central United States. It is relatively closed and has only a few families. It is one of the hiding places of the Yage team. Loki's face was covered with a hood. He transformed into Zelda, while the other 2 princesses were transformed from the corpses of 2 Yage ninjas. Loki couldn't let the props he transformed into be too far away, so he had to go into battle himself as a disguise. He was still smiling bitterly in his heart. I really don't know why I did this. Is he trying to win Link's favor? It's not like him to be so righteous. He pretended to be unconscious, and the other two Zeldas were very quiet because they were transformed from corpses. Loki could feel that he was in a car. The Yagay ninjas were chatting. The voices of these guys were very sharp and noisy, which made Loki very impatient. What made him even more impatient was actually the topic of these stupid ninjas, who kept talking about bananas. Somehow, these ninjas were very tired. So many people died. It's really. Loki was thinking, are you feeling sad for your dead companions? Then the ninjas said, that's great. Finally no one wants to snatch bananas from me. Loki, these guys. Loki didn't know that the Yagay ninjas were evil-minded people, mixed with Ganon pollution. This abnormal life form has a very light view of death, and just returns to eternal darkness. They don't feel sad, because of the death of their companions. Another ninja laughed, that's right, there are only a dozen dead. There are so many bananas, that no one can distribute. I love this place. At this moment, it seemed that they had reached the destination and the car stopped. Then Loki felt that someone was carrying him on his shoulders. The bones of these skinny ninjas were very hard, which made Loki very uncomfortable. Then I heard the ninjas talking again. Who do you think is the real Zelda among these three girls? I don't know. Who cares? Throw all the girls into the lava. There must be one that is a real one. Good idea. Let Lord Ganon figure it out. Loki's face turned cold. Lava? Loki is a descendant of the frost giants, but he is particularly afraid of fire. When Loki heard what the Yagay team was going to do next, he was panicked. He wanted to escape, but he didn't know how many troops were outside. It's over. It's over. It's over. This group of stupid ninjas, their methods are really cruel. Just when Loki was thinking about how to escape, a chubby little Iron Man was lying quietly on the car. Suddenly he sat up, and then ran over with his legs hopping quietly. Peppa whispered, Princess, Princess, Peppa will definitely save you. The light of a brave man flashed in his two big eyes. Chapter 295 Loki keeps his troops still. Peppa followed the Yagay ninjas on foot. As a ninja group, the Yagay ninjas have strong anti-reconnaissance capabilities, and it is very difficult for ordinary people to follow them. But Peppa is not ordinary. He is an expert in hide and seek, and he also knows some strange spells. He follows the enemy roundly and quietly, and those sharp ninjas never knew it. So Peppa sneaked into the underground base of this small town in the central United States. At this time, Lord Kage, who had just arrived at the underground base, was very troubled because his men had attacked the Avengers building by surprise, and many people died. The current capacity is only more than 10 people. Now the available manpower has been greatly reduced, and Lord Kage has some difficulties in calling people. For example, ordering bananas, making other things with bananas, making food with bananas, and being able to endure hunger and thirst, etc. all require manpower. Peppa followed the Yagay ninjas to a small cave. The cave was very rough, and it was obvious that it was dug by these stubborn ninjas. The ground was muddy and there was still some dirty cannon pollution on the walls, which made Peppa very scared when flying in this cave, fearing that his delicate body would be contaminated by cannon pollution. If something goes wrong, Peppa's physique would be damaged and yellow. Peppa sneaked carefully. A ninja suddenly scratched his head and said, I feel something behind me. Then he turned around and scared Peppa. He looked around with his round head, but he couldn't find a suitable hiding place. After all, this cave was very narrow, the kind that Thor and Rogers had to bend over to walk. In a hurry, Peppa thought of Tony showing him the performance of the mecha, and talking about the special function of a small Iron Man. There is a hidden device in the battle suit that can bend the light into a curve, making Iron Man appear transparent. Oh. Peppa shouted in his heart and hurriedly chose to be invisible. So the Iron Man suit on the outside became transparent. Unfortunately, Peppa's reaction speed was not as fast as the ninja's turning head. The Yagay ninja just happened to see Peppa disappear halfway. The Yagay ninja was stunned, rubbed his eyes, and said, I seem to feel something. The ninja holding Loki in front turned back impatiently. What did you see? Could it be Link? Peppa was trembling with fear. He was ready for a big battle. For the princess. For the brave man. As a result, the ninja who saw Pepper said in confusion, "I seem to see a potato made of gold." The ninja in front was furious. "Your eyes are blurry. You have hallucinations. There will be no other heretical food except bananas here. If you want to eat potatoes, then I will draw a clear line with you, the scum of the Yage team." The ninja who saw Pepper hurriedly explained, "Nonsense. My favorite is always potatoes. Don't limit other people's innocence." So he forgot about this matter. Keep walking, and Pepper also took a breath, and at the same time, a strong sense of crisis arose in his heart. "I should lose weight." Keep walking, but Loki is confused. Potatoes made of gold? Could it be Pepper? Pepper has shown off in front of him wearing a small Iron Man armor. Loki's heart was pounding. Could it be that Link and the others came to save me? He was just about to run away, but because of the suspected appearance of Pepper, he decided to hold back and wait for the opportunity. If Pepper is there, then Link and others are also nearby. Why don't they move to save Loki? They must want to go deep behind the enemy. I want to cooperate with them. Loki calmed down in his heart. What he didn't know was that the only rescuer at the moment was Pepper. Natasha was flying a plane, carrying Link and others to find Pepper. Zelda focused on the information on the phone. Pepper's whereabouts actually appeared in the central United States, and he ran so far. It's impossible that he was simply shot away by Lord Kage, right? What was Pepper doing so far away? And he even turned off the communication device on the small Iron Man. Pepper was afraid of making a sound and being discovered by the Yage ninjas. Link was wiping the Master Sword with a gloomy face. He was very angry today. The three princesses were almost kidnapped. Just thinking about it made people uncomfortable. And it was only with Loki's help that the problem was solved. This made Link full of anger. This time, no matter what, even if the Yage escaped to the edge of the galaxy, they must be eradicated. And Link was also annoyed with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. "You two naughty kids, you don't do serious things. It's not enough to join Hydra, but you also joined the Yage team. With superpowers, you are lawless." The Master Sword sensed Link's anger, so it kept glowing, shining like an energy-saving lamp. Everyone also knew how angry Link was. Natasha suddenly asked Link curiously, "By the way, Link, what did you dream about?" Midona lay on top of Link's head, supporting her head with her two little hands, and said boredly, "Of course, the three Zeldas died. Humph, you didn't dream about me. I'm unhappy." Then she patted Link's head with her two little hands. At this time, Mipha, who had not been seen for a long time, also floated out faintly and said weakly, "I didn't dream about me." This made Link sweat coldly. "Please. I dreamed about the death of the three princesses. It's not a good thing. What are you complaining about?" "Oh." Mipha suddenly realized, "I forgot that I was dead." Then she floated back to Link's body. Everyone sweated coldly. Illusion. Illusion. Wait. Link realized that his illusion had not ended yet. He broke it forcibly with the power bursting out of his heart. In other words, there is a part of the illusion that has not yet appeared, but Link seemed to be able to vaguely catch a hint. Princess Sky leaned over and looked down at Zelda's phone. Zelda's phone was heating up because it was in extreme computing. After all, there was a complete Jarvis calculating madly inside. So Zelda used her school bag to cushion it. Princess Sky looked at the position where Pepper suddenly slowed down and was a little confused. She said based on her own guess, "Could he have saved Loki?" Zelda nodded seriously. "It's possible. We must go over and check it out quickly. If it is really Pepper who is persistently pursuing Loki, then he should be in the nest of the Yage team at this moment." Link's eyes froze. Midona was also angry and eager to fight. "I want to beat the little girl who gave me nightmares, to have a psychological shadow, for life. I haven't written a thank you message for a long time. I'm so lazy. Thank you for the support of 700 starting coins from Lily Water Bottle on March 2nd. Thank you for the support of 500 starting coins from Lily Water Bottle on February 26th. Thank you for the support of 100 reading coins from Silent Passerby on February 23rd. Thanks to Lily Shooping for 500 Kidian coins on February 24th. Thanks to Bookfriend201703240723219624 100 Kidian coins on February 22nd. Thanks to Lily Shooping for 200 Kidian coins on February 21st. Thanks to Osiris Sky Dragon for 500 Kidian coins on February 19th. Thanks to Weird Old Man for 100 Redding coins on February 19th. Chapter 296 Ultron observes in secret. Link didn't know that Tony and Banner were planning something big while he was looking for Pepper. Rogers knew Tony's plan, which was due to the conspiracy of Hydra infiltrating SHIELD, which made him very sensitive to this kind of global surveillance. He stopped him immediately and stared at Tony seriously with a pair of eyes under his beautiful eyebrows. The Mind Gem Scepter is not a good thing. How dare you pay attention to it? What if something unexpected happens? But you said that this thing is almost like a life. So I plan to hide it from you, an old antique. Tony curled his lips. Anyway, he has a lot of debate skills. Tony walked over leisurely, supported the table with his hands, and explained diagonally, Captain, you have never been to outer space. You can ask Banner and Thor. The terrible strength of those alien warships. You will understand why I'm obsessed with creating a powerful global defense system. Rogers looked at Banner and Thor. The Hulk and Thor said at the same time, vulnerable. Tony coughed violently and said, that's right. They are vulnerable, but you have to know one thing. The premise that these alien armies are vulnerable is that Link, Banner, and Thor are present. Tony pointed at Thor with a signal pen. How long can you stay on Earth? Thor said in a muffled voice, after dealing with things here, I will be busy maintaining peace in the 9 realms. Not only on Earth, but also on other planets. There are Ganons and strange forces developing. I must rush back to deal with the problems. Tony snapped his fingers. Then Tony pointed the signal pen at Banner. How is your control over Hulk going? Banner smiled bitterly. It's getting less and less controllable. Fortunately, Link and Zelda can help me calm him down. Tony put the signal pen in the pen holder, clasped his hands, and looked at Rogers with his head tilted. Captain, you know the unstable situation of Hulk and Thor now. Then it's Link. Tony walked over with his arms folded, looking at Rogers seriously. Link is not from Earth either. You know, Zelda even has a country that needs to be revived. They came to this world just to defeat Ganon. That's the problem. If they defeat Ganon, they will definitely return to their world. In our world, there are more threats than just Ganon. A hero who protects the Earth is ready to go home. Tell me, what should the Earth do? Tony continued quickly. Of course we can keep Link for a while, but he has to go home eventually. Rogers said bluntly, let's fight to the death. Tony looked at Rogers deeply. This is not the answer. Some things cannot be resolved by just trying our best. We must have a perfect way to protect the Earth. Tony pointed at himself, then at Rogers, Hawkeye, and Banner. After we get old, can't wear our battle suits, can't hold our shields, our eyes are dim, and our faces are faded. There must be something to help us protect the Earth. This is my goal. Rogers was silent for a while, which was considered as tacit agreement with Tony's statement. Seeing that Rogers acquiesced, Tony put on a smile, put his arm around Rogers' shoulder, and said with a smile, okay. Ultron has been created, but Friday needs to try it over and over again. Let's go downstairs and have a drink first. It's rare that those underage children have left, otherwise it would be embarrassing to drink in front of them while they drink juice. Then the female mechanical voice of Friday came. Okay, boss, I'll inform you of any progress in time. Tony smiled proudly. Friday, my new artificial intelligence butler. 2 generations more advanced than Jarvis. I'll have to iterate and upgrade Jarvis later. Hawkeye smiled. Okay, if you really design something that can perfectly protect the Earth, I'm afraid we will have to retire. Tony put his finger on the tip of his nose and smiled. Don't worry. You can all come to work in my company. Natasha will be Pepper's assistant. Hawkeye, you will be responsible for security, and Banner's current position is my company's technical consultant. As for you, the captain. Tony shrugged. You can wear a security uniform. I'll help you set up a security room, and you can just sit in it and drink tea every day. Hawkeye said, when I retire, I will just. Tony continued, go back home and marry Natasha. After all, everyone saw the close relationship between Hawkeye and Natasha. Roger smiled at Hawkeye, and Hawkeye made a quiet gesture. Shh. When it comes to marriage, Thor was a little worried and muttered, I want to find a drug that can make people immortal. Of course, it is for his girlfriend Jane. He doesn't know how short his first love is. Tony smiled and said, good man. But there is no such thing as a drug for immortality. I can help your girlfriend and transform her into a living robot that can maintain a long life. Thor nodded. Really? Then I need to learn more about the plan you mentioned. Hawkeye and Banner broke out in cold sweat. You are thinking about transforming people's bodies behind Foster's back. It's terrible. After several people left, the Ultron began to move abnormally. At this moment, Natasha, Link and others have arrived in this small town in the central United States. Several people got off the plane. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, the plane landed far away. Zelda checked with her phone. Pepper, is it underground? Link transformed into the form of Shadow Wolf. Midona's face lit up, and she happily pounced on him and rubbed against the hair on Link's wolf head. Midona cheered, so soft and warm. Link, you might as well just stay in wolf form. It's much more pleasing to the eye than your human form. Link shook his head without thinking. Then he sniffed and began to sniff the remaining smell of pepper around. His wolf nose was very sensitive. Several girls, including Natasha, put on black clothes. So Link took the lead and groped their way over. Somehow, in this town, several houses didn't have any lights on. Because Pepper turned on the hidden state, the smell was very weak. But Link sensed the smell of Loki's frost giant. Then they came to a house. Link opened the door with his head and saw a very ordinary house. But Link smelled traces of magic here. Then the electricity crackled, and the illusion was broken. The dilapidated nature of the room was revealed. Two old men with blood on their necks and chests were lying in the corner. This was obviously the evil done by the ninjas of the Yage team. Thank you for your support of 200 starting coins on February 18th. Thank you for your support of 2000 starting coins on February 17th. Thank you for your support of 700 starting coins on February 16th. Thank you for your support of 100 starting coins on February 14th. Chapter 297 Pepper Autopsy. This house must be where these two old men lived. The two old men looked like they had been dead for a long time, but you could still tell from their tattered clothes and the overall mess in the room. Before they died, the old couple had lost most of their mobility due to old age and frailty. They barely depended on each other in this dilapidated house and lived a life of old age. But even so, God wanted to give them the last disaster. The Yage team killed them. Link smelled the scent of the dead with his wolf nose, deliberately hidden by the Yage team ninja. Turning his head to look at the dark night outside the window, the town was empty like a ghost town. I'm afraid that the only remaining residents in this town were killed by the Yage team. He turned to look at the three Zeldas and Natasha. Midona said for Link, Link and I will go down. You guys go up there and find a safe place to wait for us. The Sky Princess said, we have come all the way here. Midona spread her hands. Link is just worried that you and him will be too far away. Otherwise you will get into trouble in New York. Even if Link has wings, he can't catch up. Natasha knew her mission, so she said, okay, I will take care of the three Zeldas. Then she gathered her hair and smiled. Don't worry, leave them to me. Link nodded. He asked Natasha to come, because Black Widow is a very stable and careful person. Although the three princesses are also very reliable, having a female spy who can counter reconnaissance and is alert and sharp can always make Link feel much safer. A pair of wolf eyes reflected a strange bright light in the night. Link Wolf, without saying much, shook his tail and jumped down the hole. Natasha immediately said, let's leave first. The four girls evacuated in a hurry. The sight turned back to Pepper. Pepper followed the ninja holding Loki hostage and went deep into the cave. The surrounding Ganon pollution was increasing. Pepper instinctively felt disgusted. If he was a flesh and blood body, he would probably have goosebumps now. Then they came to a larger cave. It seemed to be a naturally formed underground cave. It was very empty and there was a sound of dripping water. The clan emblem flag of the Yage team was hung around, and a torch was burning. On the northernmost wall, a stone throne was carved out by someone. It was particularly huge, at least 5 meters high. This was obviously out of awe and reserved for Ganon. On the lower left, there was a slightly smaller seat hollowed out from the stone wall, which was obviously reserved for Lord Kage. In the center of the cave, there was a gurgling magma pool. Peppa felt that, if he got closer, the water in his body would be stripped away, and he would change from a big potato to a big, shriveled potato. This magma pool was surprisingly strange. From time to time, a bubble would rise upwards, and then burst, forming a hideous image similar to a skull with 2 eyes and a mouth. The magma splashes that burst out would always intentionally or unintentionally form a shape similar to a dry arm, stretched toward the sky. Peppa dared to guarantee that this was not his illusion. This magma pool was filled with the power of Ganon's curse, like a culture tank for vicious germs, and it seemed that some terrible and hideous monster would crawl out of it at any time. Loki's frost giant physique also felt something was wrong. There was a trace of burnt smell around his body, and the surface of his body felt the evil fire poison from an unknown place, which made Loki alert. The Yage team ninja threw the 3 Zelda to the ground with a bang, not knowing how to pity Loki. Then a layer of rock bulges like a python appeared on the ground, covering the bodies of the 3 Zelda. Next, we have to wait for Master Kage to come. The Yage ninja yawned. I feel so tired. Another ninja was also in a bad state. Me too. Did I eat too few bananas? These 2 ninjas all had the poisonous bananas made by Tony. At first, they felt very refreshed and explosive. But after digesting the bananas in their bodies, they felt a little tasteless. Eating other bananas, no matter how expensive they were, they couldn't taste the flavor. The 2 ninjas muttered, by the way, are we a little short of manpower? Should we make some more? Peppa was hiding in the corner and peeking. When he saw the 2 ninjas were about to leave, he quickly rushed over and came to Zelda. He first knocked on the head of Princess Washan. Ding ding, princess. Peppa is here to save you. But suddenly he felt something was wrong. The body of this princess was not normal. Peppa stretched out his green little hand and touched it. It was cold. Zelda was dead. Peppa's tears burst out immediately, but he held back. Now is not the time. Peppa can't cry. Peppa hurriedly touched the next sky princess, and when his little hand touched the sky princess neck, he immediately shrank back, as if he had been electrocuted. This Zelda is dead too. Peppa heard the sound of thunder and lightning in his head. At this moment, his nose and tears were flowing, and God knows how Peppa could bear not to cry out. Brave man. Peppa had a sad face. The death of the 2 princesses was too much for Peppa. Now Peppa's face was wrinkled, like a shriveled soybean, a mess. But he was alone here, isolated and helpless. Peppa had no one to rely on, and Peppa could only rely on himself. At this moment, Peppa was the bravest person in the world. There is still one. Can't give up hope. So he plucked up his courage and stretched his claws to the last Zelda. Oh my. This Zelda is colder than ice. Peppa couldn't stand the triple blow and finally couldn't help crying out. At this time, the ice-like Zelda moved his fingertips slightly and a paragraph of text appeared on the ground. I'm Loki. Zelda and the others were not captured. Peppa was stunned and took 2 steps back. Loki. He forgot one thing. Although Peppa can speak English now, he can only understand a few words. Suddenly seeing the inexplicable words on the ground, the first thing that came to Peppa's mind was the resentful curse of the corpse. Peppa was so scared that he wanted to run away. When he looked up, he saw that under the Ganon throne, the 2 ninjas had something strange going on. The tired ninjas knelt there and prayed. They were muttering inexplicable words, which made Peppa's ears hurt. Then a dark red Ganon pollution surged from the ground, covering them like worms. Sizzle. This was the sound of flesh and blood being torn apart, and Peppa's body trembled when he heard it. The ninja was torn into 2 halves. On the torn side, flesh and blood and Ganon pollution were squirming and bulging wildly. Chapter 298 Peppa will never surrender. The ninja's broken cross-section was seen to be split into 2 halves, with flesh and Ganon pollution bulging out, wriggling like dense maggots, and expanding rapidly. Then, there were 2 ninjas instead of 1. Peppa looked at them, his mouth trembling with fear. Before, the Yage ninjas were stupid, and Peppa was not particularly afraid of them. In addition, he had ventured into the Yage lair twice this time. But now that he saw that the Yage ninjas were born like this, Pepper was stunned for a moment. The cute surface of the Yagay ninjas turned out to be such a terrifying inner self. Pepper suddenly felt that the surroundings were even more terrifying. Loki barely pulled out one arm from the rock that was entangled with him and touched Pepper. At this moment, Loki had returned to his original appearance. When Pepper looked down, he saw that Zelda had become Loki. He was dumbfounded and didn't know why Loki appeared here. Loki whispered, "Help me destroy the rocks on my body. Let's escape quickly." Oh. Pepper immediately helped Loki destroy the rocks covering him. The battle suit made by Stark has a small high-energy knife that can melt rocks silently. Pepper glanced at the ninjas who were neither human nor ghost. After splitting once, they continued to split. So he suppressed the tension in his heart, first helped Loki take off his mask, and tremblingly cut the rocks that bound Loki. But what he didn't expect was that when Pepper was concentrating on dissolving the rocks attached to Loki, a burst of light from the power of Ganon's curse began to rise silently from under his feet. The second time, Loki hurriedly said, "Pepper," but he didn't dare to speak loudly. As soon as the words reached his throat, he choked back. He could only use his distorted facial features to remind Pepper and whispered in his mouth, "Quick, on you." But this weird move was misunderstood by Pepper. Pepper was very angry. Loki actually made faces at him. Pepper wanted to fight back. So Pepper immediately opened his mask and also made an ugly face at Loki. A knife for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Loki. So Pepper was successfully attached to his legs by the rocks created by Ganon's curse power. It was like he was inserted into unsolidified cement. Pepper was trapped. Who is it? Just as the two ninjas were busy asexually reproducing clones to create new formations, two people walked in. The man was wearing a grey sports jacket and silver grey hair and looked very handsome. The woman had red hair and a red skirt with baby fat on her face. She was a beautiful woman who looked younger than her actual age. Of course, it was Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. When Loki saw that something was wrong, he quickly changed back to Zelda, fell there, and closed his eyes, and pretended to be dead. Because Pepper's battle suit was entangled by the rocks, he quickly took off his battle suit and left. Suddenly, a curtain was pulled aside, and a man and a woman walked in. They were Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Pepper shouted, "Enemy." Then he took off half of his battle suit, raised his arm, and was about to shoot a laser, announcing that he had officially changed from stealth to open combat. But Quicksilver was much faster than him. He rushed over immediately, and time froze on Pepper's frightened face. Quicksilver first pinched Pepper's chubby face, then immediately pulled him out of his battlesuit, grabbing one of his short legs. Then he let the flow of time return to normal. "Ah, it's this thing. It's Link's pet. Very naughty." Quicksilver held Pepper in front of him and looked at him curiously while Pepper fiercely tried to take Quicksilver's nose. "I'm going to defeat you. Can you talk?" "So cute." Scarlet Witch rushed over and snatched Pepper from Quicksilver's hand. She put her hands on Pepper's waist and swung it left and right to look at him curiously. "Little cutie, what's your name?" Pepper struggled hard, baring his teeth and claws. "My name is Pepper, and I'm here to defeat you." "Whoa, your babyish voice is so cute." "Pepper, will you be my pet? I will take good care of you." Quicksilver saw that his sister liked it and said seriously, "Well, I will take him to get all the rabies vaccines later." The split Yagay team ninja also reacted. He turned around and asked, "Wanda, brother Wanda, what happened?" "Nothing. I caught a little thing." The words were still floating in the air, and Quicksilver rushed to the group of ninjas quickly, almost touching noses. "What do you mean by brother Wanda? Don't I have a name?" The Yagay team ninja weakly retorted, "Your name is ugly, okay?" As a result, Quicksilver returned to the Scarlet Witch again in silence, and the mask of the Yagay team ninja had been stripped off by Quicksilver. Now the Yagay team ninja is wearing a Mickey Mouse mask. Pepper was still struggling in grief and anger. "Let me go. You bad guys. Bad guys." At this time, Link's angry voice came from the empty cave. "Who is bullying Pepper?" Pepper's eyes sparkled and he shouted, brave sir, I'm here. Come and save me. Save me." The atmosphere around him suddenly became chaotic. Loki, who was lying on the ground pretending to be dead, suddenly had his eyelids twitched and almost opened his eyes. At the same time, a sense of security surged in his heart. Link is here, and the problem is equivalent to 99% solved. The faces of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were pale. Outside the exit of the cave, a black shadow rushed over, and then a furry and fierce wolf face appeared in front of them. Wolf? Is it Link's other pet besides Peppa? Quicksilver's body flashed, and the time around him slowed down instantly. Quicksilver finally saw the clear shape of the wolf. The upper part of the body is black hair, the lower part is white hair, the ears are wearing earrings, and the left front paw wrist has a broken chain ring. The wolf's eyes are very sharp, and the light blue pupils remind Quicksilver of Link. But as a wolf, this light blue pupil is even colder. And on the back of this black wolf, there is actually a cute little girl with cyan skin sitting. This little girl often sits on Link's shoulder and helps Link talk, compete with a red little dragon for a position. Speaking of that little red dragon, it's hanging on the neck of this black wolf. Quicksilver's body suddenly stiffened. The black wolf's eyes slowly shifted to his face. And on the back of Midona, dark red particles bloomed from the thick iron crown, directly crossing the boundary of time and spreading rapidly. He felt cold in his heart. This wolf, could it be Link? The other particles quickly spread over, emitting a faint glow of dark red particles, which doubled Quicksilver's vigilance. Chapter 299. Link shows off his skills. Since Quicksilver still has a special ability, or a variant, Link is naturally studying countermeasures to deal with enemies like Quicksilver. After all, it takes time to think and react, and to start bullet time, it takes at least a body swinging movement, not just a matter of time. Soon Link found his own way, which is the reality stone that he keeps. The energy of the reality stone is particularly strange. Even now, Link has used the reality stone to forcibly open an independent shadow world and put a powerful ancient god's body into it. But Link still doesn't know how to use it correctly and 100%. So much so that he was doubtful and just gave it to Midona for safekeeping, and he didn't easily use the energy of the reality stone. The other particle is the most bizarre one among the infinity stones. The release is not bound by space and time, which gives Link a lot of room for manipulation. I saw that the other particles, even in the space field created by Quicksilver with the time difference, still stretched out like a bunch of flowers, and the petals turned into cones the size of rice grains, stabbing at Quicksilver quickly. So fast. Quicksilver was startled. This was originally a world where time was slow and almost stopped. Suddenly, something was moving like him. This situation was like a haunted place. Quicksilver quickly fled 50 meters away and disappeared under the banner curtain. But as soon as Quicksilver ran away, he remembered that his sister was still there. So he quickly turned back and saw the power of Scarlet Witch colliding with the power of the reality stone of Midona. Midona looked weird. This girl, besides illusion, can actually do other tricks. Scarlet Witch and Vision are both very powerful superheroes on paper. Scarlet Witch can block Thanos with Infinity Stones with one hand and take the Mind Stone on Vision's head with the other hand. It is normal to show some power that can resist the Reality Stone now. But Midona was only slightly surprised. After all, the current Scarlet Witch is still too immature compared to Midona. In her mind, the direction of the power of the Reality Stone was slightly shifted. It was just such an advantage, but the power of the Scarlet Witch was deflected and refracted to one side. At this time, the distance between Link Wolf and the Scarlet Witch was getting closer and closer. Peppa had already stretched out his hand in surprise, trying to hold Link's outstretched claw. Quicksilver rushed over quickly, picked up his red-haired sister directly, and hurriedly fled. Peppa was so anxious that tears were about to fall out, and the claws that had just almost grabbed Link were again pulled away. At this distance, Link originally wanted to start bullet time. He quickly snatched Peppa, and by the way, he pressed Quicksilver down and held the Scarlet Witch hostage. But he suddenly felt a familiar breath, and he was distracted, so he could only let Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch escape. And the time he saved was used to transform into a human form, turn around and slash at the attacking Lord Kage with a sword. The weapons of the two collided with each other. Link was no longer the same as before, and his strength was terrifying. He shook Lord Kage away. Although Lord Kage was fat, he had a perfect curve in the shape of a pear. The movements were clumsy and funny, but the difference from the funny appearance was its swift speed and powerful strength. Lord Kage shouted. What a great strength. Brave Lord. Peppa's cry for help came from a distance. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver had already quickly arrived at the other end of the cave. Several ninjas who had split apart rushed over and surrounded Link and Midona. Midona yawned, looked at the enemies surrounding her, patted Link's head and said, "End the battle quickly, it's time to sleep now." Midona suddenly transformed into a tall, relaxed skinned beauty. In her hand was a manic reality gem, which was wriggling like a violent red giant star. Although Midona's tone was frivolous, she had already switched her physical state, indicating that she was ready for a big fight. Lord Kage shouted, "Link. Ha ha ha. How dare you rush in front of me? Are you looking for death? Go ahead, guys, kill them." He waited for his men to rush over and restrain Link. When the fight was almost over, he personally appeared and quickly crushed and defeated Link, winning the unanimous praise of his younger brothers, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. However, the ninjas who had surrounded Link suddenly yawned in boredom when they heard the banana mentioned by Lord Kage. "Banana. Boss, can you change it for a reward? Why do I suddenly feel that bananas are so boring? I feel that life is so empty." Other ninjas also responded, "Yes, so empty. I feel that there is no hope at once." Lord Kage bit his nails in shock. "What's wrong with you? Bananas can't even make them more motivated to fight. These ninjas are the two people who attacked the Avengers building, and they have eaten the poisonous bananas made by Tony. However, the bananas did not poison them to death, but made them very excited, just like taking stimulants, making them sing and dance for a while. But now, the poisonous bananas still have some effect. After the great excitement, the ninjas fell into drug-induced depression and couldn't get up. Link didn't know what was going on, but it was a good opportunity. Suddenly, his body turned, just like when he used the big sword to spin and rub the big monster. But this time, when he turned, the weapon he took out was a bow and arrow. Clusters, clusters, clusters. Link suddenly shot a large number of arrows in all directions without dead ends, flying in all directions, attacking these ninjas who couldn't get up. The ninjas were shocked, dodge, but the speed of the arrows was surprisingly fast. Seeing that a large group of new ninjas around were about to be killed by Link, Quicksilver went out again, and there was a clanging sound around, and the arrows fell to the ground, as if they hit an invisible wall. Then, next to Lord Kage, the slowed Quicksilver appeared. Just now, he used his high speed to catch a large number of Link's arrows. At this moment, Quicksilver was holding a ninja weapon in his hand to resist. Quicksilver seemed to have spent a lot of energy in the action just now. His shoulders were heaving, and he was panting. Midona gritted his teeth. "You little devil, if you make trouble like this, you will be thrown into the small dark room." But Lord Gale laughed. "Well done, Quicksilver. Your teleportation skill is really good. You will definitely create a big career." He patted Quicksilver on the back in appreciation. But Quicksilver's face was pale and his lips were a little dry. He said dryly, "KK Lord Gay, I'm tired. I will leave with the Scarlet Witch first." The nails on Quicksilver's purple hands were torn and dripping with blood. Link's arrows are not so easy to block. Chapter 300 High Speed Crash. Link's attack was not so easy to block. Quicksilver used almost all his means to knock down the arrows in high speed action. In order to show off, his hands looked miserable, but in fact, his insides were even more miserable. Even his arm was dislocated, and there were countless fractures in his hand bones. Moreover, when he was repelling the arrow attack just now, Quicksilver also consumed a lot of physical energy. At this moment, he felt his legs were weak and trembling. The high-speed action, coupled with the high-intensity power consumption, made Quicksilver a little dizzy. This time he even walked step by step to the side of the Scarlet Witch. The Scarlet Witch hurriedly took out the chocolate from her bag and fed it to Quicksilver, whose hands were unusable. And Peppa, taking this opportunity, hurriedly broke free from the Scarlet Witch's arms, ran back quickly, and fell into Link's arms. He looked at Link with bright eyes. "Brave man. Come on. Defeat these bad guys." But Lord Gay saw that Quicksilver was tired, and his ninja subordinates were all limp and listless. So he sighed exaggeratedly and raised his hand. "You can go away. Leave this to the great Lord Kage. Watch how I beat Link into a pig head, and when the time comes, remember to praise me enthusiastically." Remember to praise me, be innovative and sincere. The ninjas surrounding Link stretched out their hands and stretched their bodies as soon as they heard the boss words. Go away, it's time to get off work. I'm so tired today. It's not good for us to work all day like this. Should we enact an 8-hour work labor protection law? The bored ninjas of the Yage team left in a flash while discussing the rights of workers. Midona looked at these lazy ninjas and said to Lord Koge, your men are reluctant to fight and you are not qualified as a boss at a glance. Lord Koge said angrily, what did you say? He jumped suddenly and slashed over with a knife. Link didn't say a word before, but he was actually waiting for Lord Koge to take the initiative. The moves Link had been brewing can also be used. The Master Sword can be more effective against the Yage team. Link drew his sword, and dense electric light entangled on the sword, and Arkle's figure appeared behind him. Link's momentum was so fierce, but Lord Gay also took a deep breath. The samurai sword in his hand was surrounded by a dark red light. One could even hear the sound of Ganon pollution flowing inside his body, just like a violent force brewing under a volcano crater, brewing magma eruption, spreading dust all over the world. Just when the two weapons collided with each other, Link's start was earth-shattering, and his end was light and calm. He smiled slightly, and the electric light on the Master Sword suddenly converged, and Arkle's figure behind him also dispersed. Link twisted his toes and turned around to hit the Hylia shield backhand. Boom. Perfect shield counter. The Hylia shield gave a familiar and comfortable touch. The power that touched the surface of the shield suddenly bounced back. Lord Kage cried out ah, and saw the shiny samurai sword turned around and slashed at his face. Link stood still and exhaled. Lord Kage slammed into the wall and looked at Link in horror. Link's attack just now broke out in an instant, and it was impossible to suppress it. It was too dangerous and difficult, just like trying to block a hard-load boiler without it exploding. But Link did it, and he did it very lightly, even easily and quickly, and was able to perform a shield counter in a short period of time. Under normal circumstances, suppressing this violent energy could even cause Link to be seriously injured. Even if he was lucky, he would have to suffer for at least 2 days and 2 nights. Link, how did he do this? Lord Kage tried hard to break free from the wall he was embedded in. But Link took a step forward, his figure flashed, and he quickly rushed over, intending to pursue the victory. Lord Kage was scared to death. You can forcefully gather an attack energy, and then you can launch another attack. This startup speed is simply unheard of. Midona was also cheering. Great. Link. Come on. Defeat him. Peppa also sat on Link's other shoulder, babbling excitedly. Link stabbed with a sword, and Lord Kage quickly erected an energy shield in front of his chest. Link chopped down fiercely, and the energy shield paused. From the center of the impact, a circle of vibration flashed, and Link's attack was disintegrated. Lord Kage laughed. Have you forgotten that my energy shield is invincible? In the Hyrule continent, Link once fought with Lord Kage. Lord Kage has an energy shield that is almost invincible. Link tried to attack many times, but he couldn't penetrate it. He can only wait until the maintenance time of this shield ends before Link can continue to attack. This is the power of Lord Kage. Midona also laughed hypocritically and said, you said invincible, so it's invincible? Since Link had fought with Lord Kage before, he naturally prepared a way to deal with this invincible shield. Midona immediately took out the reality gem, and the dark red strange particles easily penetrated into the invincible shield and hit Lord Kage's face fiercely. Invincible? No matter how invincible the move is, it is only applicable to the real world. Lord Kage suffered a serious blow to the face. Quicksilver saw that it was not good, and hurriedly lowered his arms, and rushed over quickly. Although his 2 hands were temporarily unable to move, because he didn't know how to live or die and took Link's attack, Quicksilver's 2 feet could still be used normally. Quicksilver kicked Link's, but directly from behind. As a result, when he rushed over at high speed, his feet suddenly lost their ground. Quicksilver hurriedly lowered his head, and found that the ground had been covered with a layer of slippery ice. You know, Quicksilver is moving at super high speed. What will happen if his feet slip? Quicksilver screamed and fell down all of a sudden, but the strong inertia brought by his super high speed. He rushed towards Link with a scream. Although Quicksilver's actions were extremely fast, Link could still feel a little movement. With a swing of his body, he easily wiped out bullet time. Link just let go. Quicksilver slammed hard into the invincible shield of Lord Koge. Crack. Quicksilver heard some bad sounds coming from his body, which made him panic, and got goosebumps. His leg was broken. Brother. Scarlet Witch didn't care about her fear of Link. Seeing Quicksilver hugging his legs in pain and shrinking on the ice, Scarlet Witch's emotions suddenly became irritable, and the energy in her body naturally became agitated. A surge of dark red energy was seen, like a demon's hand, reaching out to Link. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.